The album was still open between us when David said it. Not closed, not shoved away. Open to a picture of my husband and his daughters standing under a banner that read, "Welcome home," except the woman coming home had been cropped out. "You raised no one, Rachel," he said. "You served. I raised them." For a few seconds, the only sound in our dining room was the tick of the cheap wall clock David had promised to replace in 2019. My fingertips were resting on the edge of the page. Brooke had chosen thick cream paper, the kind that made every photograph look important. Beside the cropped picture, in David's blocky handwriting, was the caption, "The years Dad became both parents." I looked at the pale shape near the right border, the sliver of my uniform sleeve they hadn't quite cut away. "You really believe that?" I asked. David rubbed his palms against his jeans. "I believe we're not going to ruin our anniversary over one badly worded caption." "That isn't what I asked." Headlights passed across the front windows. For one stupid second, we both turned toward them, thinking Nina or Brooke had arrived early. The light slid away. David let out a breath. "Can we please not do this tonight?" Dinner was set for 6:30. The tenderloin was resting on the counter. 4 cloth napkins waited beside 4 plates, each folded into the triangle shape David liked, because, according to him, rectangles look like a cafeteria trying to get a bank loan. There was a bottle of champagne in the refrigerator and another one chilling in the utility sink because David had invited our neighbor Art to stop by later without telling me. 30 years of marriage, and he still believed extra alcohol counted as a plan. I had retired 8 months earlier after 26 years in Army logistics. Since then, everyone had kept asking what I did with all my free time. That morning, my free time had included picking up David's dry cleaning, confirming Brooke's hotel reservation, taking Nina's car to the tire shop because she was coming straight from the airport, making the horseradish sauce David's mother used to make, and calling 3 bakeries to find the chocolate cake Brooke had loved since college. I had also bought my own anniversary flowers. David forgot flowers in a very consistent way. It was almost a tradition. At 9 that morning, he had come into the kitchen, seen the white roses in a pitcher, and kissed the back of my neck. "You beat me to it," he'd said. "You weren't racing." I was mentally racing. And how'd you place? Strong second. There had only been 2 of us in the kitchen, but that was David. He could make neglect sound like charm, and most days I let him. He made coffee while I trimmed the stems. He even warmed my mug first, something he had learned during our 3rd year of marriage and never forgotten. That was the confusing thing about David. He could remember that cold ceramic ruined coffee for me and somehow forget that I had a place in the family we built. Brooke had shipped the album to the house 2 days earlier with instructions not to open it until that evening. She had assembled it online using photographs from the plastic bins in our hall closet and captions David sent her by email. I knew she'd been working on it because she called twice to ask whether a particular Christmas happened before or after our kitchen flooded. "If the cabinets are brown, it's before," I told her. "They're sort of orange. That was brown in 1998. Was it?" "People made choices." She laughed. Brooke's laugh always began with one sharp breath, like she just remembered she was allowed to have fun. I hadn't asked what pictures she chose. I wanted to be surprised. David opened the package after lunch, supposedly to make sure it wasn't damaged. Then he left the album on the dining table while he went upstairs to shower. I was setting out glasses when I noticed the first caption that didn't sound like Brooke. Dad holding everything together while Rachel was overseas. Not Mom, Rachel. I turned another page. The summer Dad did it all, then another, our constant. There were photographs of birthday dinners, road trips, graduations, badly painted rooms, hospital waiting areas, and Sunday breakfasts. I was missing from more than half of them. Sometimes that made sense. I had been deployed twice and stationed away from home at other points, but in many pictures, I had been standing on the other side of the camera. I knew, because I remembered taking them. There was David at the stove wearing the red apron I mailed him after he called to complain that tomato sauce had ruined his favorite shirt. There was Nina holding a repaired evening dress that had arrived at my temporary quarters in a padded envelope, then gone back to her with neater seams. There was Brooke beside a lopsided cake I had ordered at 2 in the morning after confusing the time difference and waking a very patient baker in Ohio. The captions credited David for all of it. By the time he came downstairs wearing the blue sweater I bought him, I had reached the welcome home picture. He stopped 3 feet inside the dining room. You opened it. It was already open. Brooke wanted us to wait. Did Brooke write these captions? He came closer but didn't look down. Most of them. That wasn't my question. He had spent enough years married to me to know that repeating a question meant I already knew the answer. I gave her some background, he said. You gave her a story. Oh, come on. Who cropped this photograph? I have no idea. You're the one who scanned it. Maybe the software did it. The software took a position. That almost made him smile. I saw it flicker, then disappear, because smiling would have required admitting I had said something funny, and he was busy being offended. He reached for the album. I kept my hand on the page. What exactly is the problem? He asked. I want to hear you say what this is. It's an anniversary gift from our daughters. Your daughters. His eyebrows lifted. Excuse me? That's what the book says. Your daughters. Their father. Rachel was overseas. You were overseas. And when I wasn't? He looked toward the kitchen, where the oven timer was counting down. Can we take the meat out before it turns into roofing material? I walked into the kitchen, silenced the timer, and removed the pan. David followed me. We have people coming, he said. We have Nina and Brooke coming, and Art and Denise later. You invited Denise too. Obviously, if Art is coming. Nothing about Art makes Denise obvious. Rachel. I set the pan on the stovetop. My hands were steady. People used to mistake that for calm. It wasn't calm. Calm was loose shoulders and a clear head. This was containment. David leaned against the counter. I don't understand why you're acting blindsided. Those years were hard. I know they were. Do you? I turned to him. There it was. Not a clumsy caption. Not one ugly sentence. A room he had been furnishing in his head for years. He stared at the floor between us. Everybody thanked you. Every ceremony, every promotion, every time you came home, people lined up to tell you how proud they were. Do you know what people said to me? I waited. They said, "You must be proud." That was it. Like I'd been standing in the audience all those years. You should have told me you felt that way. When? Any time in 30 years. He gave a short, humorless laugh. Right. I'd call you in the middle of a supply crisis and say, "Hey, I'm feeling overlooked." You called me because the upstairs toilet kept running. That's your answer? My answer is you called me about everything except the truth. His mouth tightened. I was here. I was the one getting up every morning. I was the one sitting with them when they were angry. I was the one they could depend on. You were. And I thanked you. This isn't about a thank you. No, apparently it's about ownership. He pushed away from the counter. You always do that. Do what? Turn everything into an operation. Define the problem, assign the blame, complete the mission. That's not what I'm doing. You can't stand that there was one part of this family you didn't run. I felt that sentence more than I expected, not because it was true, but because some part of him needed it to be. I walked back to the dining room and looked down at the open album. In the cropped photograph, David was younger, broader through the shoulders, one arm around each daughter. All 3 of them were laughing at something outside the frame. At me, I remembered. I had walked into the wrong side of the banner and gotten tangled in it. I said, "Do you think I stopped being their parent when I got on a plane?" They needed somebody physically here. That's not an answer. You want credit for phone calls and packages. I want you to stop talking about my relationship with them like it was a hobby I did remotely. David's face reddened. I did the raising, Rachel. I looked at him. He could have stopped there. He had several chances. Marriage gives people thousands of exits from the worst thing they're about to say. He took none of them. You raised no one, he said. You served. I raised them. Afterward, he looked almost relieved. That hurt worse than the sentence. I went upstairs. David followed as far as the bottom step. "Where are you going?" "To change." "Good. They'll be here soon." In our bedroom, the dress I had planned to wear was laid across the bed. Navy blue, simple neckline, no sleeves. Nina had helped me choose it the previous weekend and told me it made my arms look gently threatening. I put it back in the closet. Then I took the small black overnight bag from the shelf. I had kept some version of that bag packed for most of my adult life. David used to tease me about it. The apocalypse could happen during dinner, and Rachel would have clean socks. I added toiletries, jeans, 2 shirts, my medications, and the paperback on my nightstand. I paused over the framed photograph beside the lamp, David and me at a beach in North Carolina, both sunburned, both laughing, and left it where it was. When I came downstairs carrying the bag, he was standing beside the dining table. He had closed the album. "Are you serious?" he asked. "Yes. The girls are 20 minutes away. They're women, David. You can tell them we argued. You're going to walk out on our anniversary? I'm going to leave before I say something I can't take back. You think this is restraint? I know what restraint feels like." He stared at the bag. "And where are you going?" "I'll let you know when I've decided. What am I supposed to tell them?" The truth would be new. That landed. I regretted it before his face changed, but not enough to take it back. He opened his mouth just as tires rolled into the driveway. We both turned toward the front window. Nina's rental car stopped behind David's truck. Brooke climbed out of the passenger side, holding the cake box against her chest, while Nina waved at the house with both hands, grinning like she could already see us through the wall. David looked from them to me. "Put the bag upstairs," he said quietly. "We'll deal with this tomorrow." For 30 years, tomorrow had been where we stored everything David didn't want to face. I picked up my keys. The front door opened before I reached it. Brooke stepped inside first, smiling. "Happy anniversary. Please tell me neither of you peeked at the album." Then she saw the bag in my hand. Brooke's smile stayed in place, a second too long. Behind her, Nina bumped the door with her hip and said, "Could we not establish residency in the doorway? It's freezing." Then she saw me. Her eyes went to the bag, then David, then the dining table. Nina had inherited her father's dark eyebrows and my habit of inventorying a room before speaking. Genetics wasn't responsible for the second part, but 28 years around me probably was. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing happened," David said. Brooke looked over her shoulder at him. "She has luggage." "It's an overnight bag," he said, as if that cleared everything up. The cake box tilted in Brooke's hands. I reached out automatically and steadied it. "Careful," I said. "The icing is soft." She stared at me. "Mom." That one word almost sent me upstairs to unpack. David stepped forward. "Your mother and I had a disagreement, and she's decided tonight is the right time to make a point." "I'm not making a point. You're leaving with a bag." "Yes. On our anniversary. We've covered the date." Nina shut the front door. "Can somebody tell us what the disagreement was?" "No," I said. David said, "The album." Brooke looked toward the table. "What about it?" "Nothing about the album," I said. "The problem is something your father said while we were discussing it." David laughed under his breath. "Discussing? David." "No, go ahead. If you're walking out, at least tell them why. I don't want them in the middle of this. You're standing in front of them with a suitcase." "Overnight bag," Brooke said faintly, because apparently we were all going to honor David's distinction. Nina gave her a look. "What?" Brooke said. "I'm trying not to throw the cake. You can put it on the counter. I spent 45 minutes keeping this level. I've got it." Nina took the box from her and carried it into the kitchen. No one spoke until she returned. The 4 plates were still waiting on the table. The closed album sat beside the champagne glasses, square and innocent. Brooke pointed at it. "Did you hate it?" "No." That was true. Hate would have been easier. Then what? David folded his arms. Your mother doesn't like that the book reflects what things were actually like. I turned to him. Are you sure you want to do this? I want to have dinner. That option ended 5 minutes ago. Brooke's gaze moved between us. What did he say? I could have softened it. I could have said he minimized my role or spoke out of anger. That would have been my normal contribution to family peace, taking the sharp thing David said and wrapping it before handing it to anyone else. I was tired of finding tissue paper. He told me I raised no one, I said. He said I served, and he raised you. Nina's face changed immediately. Brooks didn't. David spread his hands. That is not the whole conversation. It's a complete sentence. You were accusing me of erasing you, because you erased me. From a photograph, he said. Apparently that means the last 30 years are a lie. Brooke walked to the table and opened the album. She flipped past the first several pages too quickly, then slowed when she reached the spread I had been looking at. The crop was automatic, she said. David looked at me as if a witness had just confirmed his alibi. Brooke touched the right edge of the photograph. The website does that when the picture doesn't fit. I didn't notice. I believe you, I said. I can fix it. This isn't about the crop. You just said he erased you. The software cropped me. Your father wrote the caption. Her eyes dropped to the page. Nina came around the table and read over her shoulder. The years Dad became both parents. It was supposed to recognize him, Brooke said. It recognizes him by pretending Mom ceased to exist. Don't call her Mom just to take a side, David said. The room went silent. Nina turned slowly. I'm sorry? I didn't mean it that way. How did you mean it? He rubbed his forehead. I mean, Rachel isn't more of a mother because you say the word during an argument. I watched Nina absorb that. She had always been the quicker of the two to fight, but anger made her quieter, not louder. Brooke was the one who detonated. Nina stored ammunition. I call her Mom because she's my mother, Nina said. I know that. Do you? Of course I do. Brooke closed the album. Can everybody stop? Please? This was supposed to be a good thing. I know, I said. Her eyes filled, which felt unfair even though she couldn't help it. I worked on this for 6 weeks, and it's beautiful. You're leaving because of it. No, I'm leaving because your father said something I cannot sit across from tonight and pretend I didn't hear. David shook his head. There it is. One sentence outweighs 30 years. No. One sentence explained 30 years in a way I wasn't prepared for. He flinched. I picked up my bag. Nina moved toward me. Where are you going? I'll find a hotel. You can stay with me. She lived nearly 400 miles away. She had a hotel room for the weekend and a carry-on bag that contained 6 pairs of shoes because Nina believed weather was a personal challenge. I'm not taking your room. I'll get another one. You don't need to. Will you stop being practical for 1 minute? Not tonight. Brooke stepped between me and the door. She wasn't blocking it exactly, but I would have had to ask her to move. Can't we eat first, she said. The hopeful absurdity of it nearly broke me. The tenderloin was resting. The potatoes were hot. There was horseradish sauce in the refrigerator and a cake on the counter with Happy 30th. Mom and Dad piped across the top. We knew how to eat through anything. I can't, I said. Her mouth tightened. Dad didn't say you never loved us. Brooke, Nina warned. He didn't. He said he did the raising, and he did do most of the day-to-day stuff when she was gone. I know what he did, I said. Then why are you acting like he said you were nothing? Because that was exactly what he had said. But Brooke wasn't asking for an answer. She was asking me to remove the threat from the room. I'm not going to argue my case to you, I said. I'm not a jury. Good. Don't let either of us make you one. David looked away. Brooke saw it. Dad? I haven't made anybody anything. You used the book she made to do exactly that, Nina said. I used the book to tell the truth. Your truth. My life. Her life, too. David's jaw worked. You weren't there. Nina recoiled as if he had slapped the table. Neither daughter said anything after that. The anniversary album lay closed beneath Brooke's hands. I looked at David, waiting for him to hear himself. He didn't take the words back. He only stared toward the kitchen, where the vent fan hummed over a dinner no one wanted anymore. Brooke finally stepped aside. "Call me when you get somewhere," Nina said. "I will." David said nothing. I walked out with my overnight bag, my purse, and the keys to a car that had a full tank because I had filled it that morning. The cold had sharpened while we argued. Nina's rental car blocked the center of the driveway, but I could back around it if I angled carefully past the recycling bin. I had just opened my door when Nina came outside without a coat. "Mom, go back in. You're freezing. Are you coming home tomorrow?" I put my bag in the back seat. "I don't know." Her arms tightened around herself. "That's not a very you answer. It's the only honest one I have. Did he tell you to leave?" "No." "Did he apologize?" "No, he will." I looked toward the house. Through the dining room window, I could see David standing near the table. Brooke was beside him with her head down. "Nina, listen to me. Don't fight him for me. He can't say that. He already did." "So that's it?" "No, it's tonight." She looked angry with me for making the distinction. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Make the emergency small enough to carry." I had no response ready, which she seemed to recognize as a victory. "Call me," she said again. "I will." I backed around the recycling bin, missed the mailbox by an amount I chose to call generous, and drove away. 3 hotels told me they were full before I remembered there was a college basketball tournament downtown. The 4th had a room beside the ice machine. The clerk warned me about the noise as though I might be planning a spiritual retreat. "I've slept next to generators," I told him. He glanced at my overnight bag. "This'll probably be worse." The room had beige walls, 2 prints of sailboats, and a desk chair that leaned left no matter what I did. I set my bag on the luggage rack, locked the door, and called Nina. "I'm in a hotel," I said when she answered. "Which one?" I told her. "That place smells like chlorine. I'm not drinking the pool." She didn't laugh. Behind her, I heard cabinets opening and closing. "Are you still at the house?" "Yes." "Brooke wants to stay with Dad tonight." "That's fine. It's not a custody arrangement, Mom." "I didn't say it was. You sounded like you were approving a troop placement." I sat on the edge of the bed. "How is everybody?" "Dinner is in the refrigerator. The cake is on the counter." Dad opened the champagne and poured 1 glass. "Is he driving?" "No." "Then that's his choice." "He said you've been unhappy since you retired." I looked at the blank television screen. My reflection looked gray and distant. "I didn't know that," I said. "He says you've been looking for a reason to leave. Did he give an example?" "He said you keep rearranging the pantry." Despite myself, I laughed. Nina let out a breath. "I knew you'd appreciate that. The cumin was in 3 places. I'm not taking a position on the cumin." Coward. For a moment, we sounded normal. Then she said, "Brooke thinks you're overreacting." "I know. She thinks you didn't hear what he meant. I heard what he meant before he said it." Nina was quiet. "Go home tomorrow," I told her. "Use your hotel. Get some sleep. Don't spend the weekend managing us. Somebody has to." No. That is how this family keeps getting into trouble. After we hung up, I noticed I had 6 messages from David. "Where are you? Please tell me you're safe. The girls are upset. This has gotten completely out of hand. Call me." The final message arrived while I was reading the others. "You proved your point. Come home." I placed the phone face down on the nightstand. Then I unpacked my toothbrush, because there are certain decisions a person makes with words, and others she makes by putting her toothbrush in a hotel bathroom. I had just turned off the light when Brooke called. "Are you asleep?" she asked. "No." Her voice was thick. Dad told me what the deployments were really like. I stared into the dark. "I was there, Brooke. Not for all of it." "No." He says, "If you leave him over this, you'll prove he was right." I closed my eyes. "About what? That serving always mattered more to you than staying." "If that's what he believes," I said, "then staying wouldn't change his mind." Brooke breathed into the phone. That doesn't make sense. It does to me. You always say that when you don't want to explain. I'm trying to explain. No, you're trying to be calm. The ice machine dumped a load on the other side of the wall with a crash that sounded like a cabinet collapsing. I waited until it stopped. What do you want me to say? I asked. I don't know. That you're coming back. That Dad was angry and said something awful, but you know what he meant. I do know what he meant. He meant he was there. I have never denied that. But you keep saying you raised us too. Because I did. From where? The question came out fast. Brooke went silent immediately afterward. I leaned back against the headboard. The hotel pillows were so soft they seemed to be escaping their own cases. Sometimes from far away, I said. That isn't the same. No, it isn't. I heard her sniff. I remember Dad making dinner, she said. I remember him waiting up when I was out. I remember him knowing where everything was and who was mad at who and what had to happen the next morning. I remember you calling and asking for updates like we were items on a list. That one found its mark. I probably did that. You did. I had limited time on the phone, and I wanted to know everything. It didn't feel like everything. It felt like reporting. I closed my eyes. In my memory, those calls were lit by fluorescent bulbs and counted in minutes. I would make a list beforehand so I didn't forget anything. How was work? Did the plumber come? Had Nina's car started making that noise again? Was Brooke still fighting with her roommate? I believed details were proof of attention. Maybe sometimes they had sounded like an inspection. I'm sorry, I said. Brooke was quiet long enough that I checked the screen to make sure we were still connected. You don't have to say that just because I'm upset. I'm saying it because I didn't know it felt that way. Dad knew. I'm sure he did. There was a hard edge in my voice. She heard it. This is what I mean, she said. You make it sound like he used us against you. He is using you now. He's hurt. So am I. But you left. Leaving the house is not the same as leaving all of you. That's probably easy to believe when you're the one walking out the door. I sat with that. Brooke had never been cautious with a blade. If she was angry, she handed it to you by the sharp end and seemed surprised when everyone bled. You're right, I said. It may not feel different tonight. Then come back. I can't. You won't. That too. She made a frustrated sound. Why? Because if I had stayed, I would have carved the meat. I would have opened the champagne. I would have told you not to worry, and by dessert, your father's words would have become something we all agreed not to remember correctly. That's not fair. It's exactly what would have happened. You don't know that. I know us. She didn't respond. Brooke, I am not asking you to decide who raised you. You already know my answer. I swallowed. Then it's yours, I said. Her voice softened, but not kindly. I didn't say you did nothing. I know. Dad shouldn't have said no one. No. But he did more. There are moments when love asks you to resist your worst instinct. Mine was to begin presenting evidence. I could have listed the leave I saved, the jobs I declined, the nights I stayed awake waiting for a phone connection, the problems I solved without telling anyone because the household was already strained. I could have reminded her of everything I had done since retiring, as if 8 months of constant availability could be submitted as back payment. Instead, I said, "You're allowed to remember your life differently than I remember mine." That sounds like something a therapist says before charging you $200. It does. Brooke gave a wet, reluctant laugh. Then she said, "I don't want you to hate him." I don't. Do you still love him? The answer arrived too quickly and hurt on the way out. Yes. Then what are we doing? I don't know yet. She hung up after making me promise again that I was safe. I left the bathroom light on and lay down fully dressed. At 1:13, David sent a message. I spoke badly. At 1:26, another. That doesn't mean the entire point was wrong. I turned my phone over. The ice machine woke me twice. At 5, someone laughed in the hallway for nearly a minute with the full commitment of a person who had either fallen in love or found a vending machine that accepted crumpled bills. At 6:15, I gave up on sleep. I showered, put on the same clothes, and made coffee in the little plastic machine. It tasted like someone had described coffee to hot water. I drank it anyway. There was a knock while I was trying to decide whether powdered creamer could legally be considered food. "Nina," I said through the door, "how do you know it's me?" "You knock like you're collecting a debt. Open up, I brought real coffee." She stood in the hallway wearing leggings, boots, and a camel coat over what looked like her pajama shirt. Her hair was twisted into a knot that had surrendered on one side. In one hand, she held a cardboard tray with 2 coffees. In the other, a paper bag darkened by butter. "You look terrible," she said. "So do you." "Thank God. I was afraid hotel lighting had made you cruel." I let her in. She set breakfast on the desk and tested the chair. It leaned left. She frowned, tried it again, then wedged the room service menu beneath one wheel. "You can't help yourself," I said. It was unsafe. It was mildly annoying. Gateway condition. I took the coffee she handed me. It was exactly right. Nina sat on the edge of the second bed. "Brooke called you." "Yes? She called me after." "How is she?" "Mad at everybody, which is her preferred form of balance." "And your father?" "He's cleaning." David cleaned when anger made him feel cornered. Somewhere in our house, Grout was in danger. Nina opened the paper bag and handed me a biscuit. "He asked me who took me to all my appointments while you were gone." I stopped unwrapping it. "What did you say?" "I said I wasn't doing that. Good." He said it was a simple question. "It isn't." "I know." She picked at a loose thread on the comforter. The answer was him, by the way. "I know that, too. He wanted me to say it out loud." "I'm sorry." "You didn't ask him to do that." "No, but you're involved because of me." "No, I'm involved because I opened your front door carrying 6 pairs of shoes. 5. Her eyes narrowed. "Did you count? You packed sandals in November. The hotel has a pool. You don't swim. That's not the point." I smiled despite myself. Nina watched me over the rim of her coffee. "Are you really not going home? I'm going back for clothes. That isn't what I asked. I'll stay here a few days. And after that, I don't know." She nodded once, not because she liked the answer, but because she believed it. "I can come with you," she said. "No. He's going to try to talk you into staying. He can try. You don't always notice when he's doing it." That annoyed me more than it should have. I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. You're just weird about him. 30 years will do that. Maybe. She looked toward the sailboat print above the bed. I never noticed how many family stories start with Dad saying, "When Rachel was gone." I folded the biscuit wrapper into smaller and smaller squares. "Nina, I'm not taking sides. You are." "Fine. Then I'm taking the side where nobody gets deleted." I reached across the space between the beds and squeezed her hand. She left for her hotel a little after 8. I waited until 9:30 before driving home. The anniversary flowers were still visible through the kitchen window when I pulled into the driveway. David had moved them from the pitcher to the dining table, probably because the kitchen smelled like cooked meat and wounded pride. Brooke's car was parked at the curb. She had apparently left hers there before meeting Nina at the airport. I stood outside longer than necessary, staring at my own front door. Then I went in. The dining room had been cleared. The album now rested on the sideboard beside the unopened second bottle of champagne. David was at the sink wearing the red apron I had mailed him years earlier. He turned off the water. "You came back. For clothes." The hope left his face so quickly I almost apologized for causing it. Brooke sat at the kitchen table with both hands around a mug. She was wearing one of David's old sweatshirts and had washed off her makeup. The cake had been cut. A narrow slice was missing from the word Mom, leaving Happy 30th and Dad. It was so on the nose, I nearly laughed. David untied the apron. "Can we talk upstairs?" "We can talk here." Brooke stood. "I'll go." "You don't have to," I said. "I really do." She carried her mug toward the guest room without looking at me. David waited until the door closed. I'm sorry, he said. The words were stiff, but they were there. For what? His face tightened. Do we have to do this like an interrogation? I need to know what you're apologizing for how I said it. I put my purse on the counter. What would the correct wording have been? That I handled more of the parenting when it mattered day to day. So the sentence is the same. You just want nicer packaging. That is not the same as saying you did nothing. You said I raised no one. I was angry. And now I'm exhausted. I waited. He looked toward the hall. Brooke understands what I meant. Stop doing that. What? Using her agreement to make yourself right. I didn't ask her to agree. You asked Nina to inventory appointments. His eyes flashed. She told you that? Yes, of course she did. No one is betraying you, David. Really? Because it feels like the two of you have formed a committee. I picked up my overnight bag from beside the door and started upstairs. He followed. Rachel, how long are you staying at the hotel? A few days. That's ridiculous. This is your house. I know. Then stay here. I'll sleep in the guest room. Brooke is in the guest room. She's leaving today. That wasn't my point. In the bedroom, I took a larger suitcase from the closet floor. David stood in the doorway while I opened drawers. What do I tell people? He asked. I turned with a stack of shirts in my hands. About what? Art texted this morning. Denise wants to bring over a casserole. Tell them we had a fight. Everyone has fights. We had a memorable one. He rubbed both hands over his face. You're enjoying this. The accusation was so strange I stopped packing. You think I wanted to spend our anniversary next to an ice machine? I think you like being the person who can leave. I looked at him for a long time. No, I said. I became the person who knew how. Behind him, Brooke stood at the end of the hall. Neither of us had heard the guest room door open. She looked at the suitcase, then at me. When were you planning to come back? She asked. I rested my hands on the folded clothes. Every single time, I said. Brooke's expression shifted, but I couldn't tell in which direction. That's not what I meant, she said. I know, I meant now. I know that too. David moved away from the doorway. You always came back because this was home. I came back because I loved you, I said. Don't confuse that with a law. He looked as though I had struck him. Brooke folded her arms. So you can't even say whether you're coming back? No, because of one sentence. Brooke, David said, and there was warning in his voice now. She ignored him. You told me not to be a jury, but you keep saying things that make everybody pick a side. I'm packing clothes. You left during our anniversary dinner. It wasn't your anniversary. It was our family. The suitcase sat open between us, half full of ordinary things. Underwear, socks, a gray sweater with a snag near the wrist. Nothing about it looked important enough to carry the weight the three of us were putting on it. I sat on the edge of the bed. You're right, I said. It affected you. I'm sorry about that. Brooke frowned. She had been ready for resistance. An apology left her nowhere to push. But I was not going to sit at that table after what your father said. He apologized. David stared at the carpet. I looked at Brooke. Did he tell you that? He said he did. I apologized for how I said it, David replied. That's not the same thing, Brooke said. He looked at her sharply. You told me you understood what I meant. I do. I also understand the word sorry. Then maybe explain it to your mother. Don't, I said. David's face hardened. Don't what? Turn her into your interpreter. You've been interpreting me for years. It came out before he seemed to understand what he had admitted. Brooke's eyes moved to me. I stood and returned to the dresser. I need the green sweater from your side. David glanced behind him. Why is it on my side? Because you hang everything by color instead of owner. That system works. It works if I'm home to tell you which clothes aren't yours. He found the sweater and handed it to me. His fingers held on for half a second after mine closed around the fabric. What happens after a few days? He asked. I decide what I need next, and I just wait? No. You do whatever you need to do. That's generous. It wasn't meant to be. I packed 2 more pairs of pants, my running shoes, a jacket, and the folder containing my retirement insurance information. I left the framed beach photograph beside the bed. I also left my jewelry box, though David watched to see whether I would take it. That hurt in a different way. When I zipped the suitcase, he reached for the handle. I can carry it. So can I. I know you can, Rachel. His voice softened on my name. For one dangerous second, the room became ours again. The same bed, the same dent in the carpet where his shoe rack had stood before. I convinced him shoes did not need furniture. 30 years had created thousands of places where I could rest without noticing. I picked up the suitcase before tenderness could become a decision. Downstairs, Brooke returned to her coffee. David opened the refrigerator, stared inside, and closed it without taking anything. The anniversary album waited on the sideboard. Take it, Brooke said. I looked at her. It's yours. I made it for both of you. Then it can stay here. You don't want it. Right now, I don't want to look at it. Her lips pressed together. I pulled the handle up on my suitcase. Are you driving home today? After lunch? Your tires are good? The moment the words left me, I knew they were wrong. Brooke gave a tired laugh. This is what I was talking about. What? I tell you I'm hurt and you ask about tire pressure. It's cold and you have a long drive. I'm 32. Tires don't care. She looked down at her mug, but the corner of her mouth twitched. I crossed the kitchen and put my arms around her. She went stiff, then leaned into me so abruptly I had to shift my feet. I love you, I said. I know. It wasn't the same as hearing it back, but it was something. David stood by the refrigerator and watched us. When I moved toward him, he stepped closer as if we might hug too. I couldn't do it. I touched his arm instead. I'll call tonight, I said. Will you? Yes. He nodded, embarrassed by the question. I rolled my suitcase out to the car. No one followed me this time. The hotel extended my reservation for 3 nights but made me change rooms because, according to the desk clerk, a visiting assistant coach had strong feelings about being near the ice machine. I understand, I said. It's very emotional ice. My new room faced the parking lot and smelled faintly of microwave popcorn. It felt like an improvement. I spent the afternoon making a list. Lists are dangerous because they create the impression that all problems can be contained by margins. Still, I wrote down everything David would need if I stayed away longer than a few days. The electric bill drafted on the 4th. The exterminator came every other Wednesday. The furnace filter size was printed inside the utility closet because David had bought the wrong one 3 times. Our dentist had rescheduled both cleanings. The tenderloin in the refrigerator needed to be eaten or frozen. Art still had our extension ladder. Nina's spare car key was in the blue bowl near the garage entrance, not the ceramic bowl David insisted on checking first. Then I began adding the things I normally handled without thinking. Brooke's hotel reimbursement needed to be transferred. David's cousin's birthday card was already stamped, but not mailed. Denise had asked us to bring salad to her dinner the following Friday. The wine club shipment required an adult signature, which struck me as optimistic given the adults involved. I stopped after 2 pages. The list made me look less like a wife than the night manager of a complicated little motel. I emailed it to David. He called 3 minutes later. What is this? Information. I can read. Why did you send it? So you know what's coming up. I ran this house while you were deployed. Yes. Then why are you giving me instructions like I'm incompetent? I didn't say you were incompetent. That furnace filter note was condescending. You bought a filter for a commercial unit. They packaged them badly. You put it in sideways. It fit. Because you bent it. He went quiet. I stared out at the parking lot. A woman in a red coat was trying to pull a suitcase through a patch of dirty snow. One wheel kept turning backward. David said, Are you coming Friday? To Denise's? Yes. I don't think so. What am I supposed to tell them? That I won't be there. You want me to walk in alone and announce we're separated? We haven't decided what word we're using. You moved into a hotel. A hotel isn't a legal category. So now we're joking. I'm not. He let out a long breath. Come home tonight. I'll give you space. We can use separate rooms. That house has 3 bedrooms, and somehow every conversation still ends up in the kitchen. Then I won't talk to you. That isn't better. What do you want from me? I need you to understand why what you said was more than anger. I said I was sorry. You said you were sorry about the wording, because the wording was cruel, and the belief underneath it. He didn't answer. We stayed on the phone in silence until I could hear the refrigerator door open on his end. "Where's the horseradish sauce?" he asked. I laughed before I could stop myself. "What, top shelf behind the mustard?" I looked there. "Move the pickles." A pause. "Found it." "Good. I wasn't asking because I can't function without you. I didn't think you were." You laughed. "Because we were in the middle of a marital crisis and you needed a condiment. I was making a sandwich, apparently with urgency." That pulled a reluctant sound from him, almost a chuckle. The familiarity of it moved through me like warmth under a door. Then he said, "See? We're fine." I closed my eyes. "No, David. We had a normal 30 seconds. That isn't the same thing." His breathing changed. "I have to go," I said. "Rachel, I'll call tomorrow." I ended the call before he could turn another small kindness into evidence that nothing had happened. Nina flew home that evening. She texted from the airport that Brooke had made it safely to her apartment, and David had eaten 2 slices of anniversary cake for dinner. I asked whether he'd had anything else. Nina replied, "This is why he thinks you'll come back." I didn't answer. The next day, I toured 3 furnished apartments. The first had a window facing a brick wall and a couch covered in a fabric that looked medically washable. The second smelled like someone had tried to drown cigarette smoke in vanilla. The third was a 1-bedroom in a quiet complex near the river, with plain furniture, clean cabinets, and a narrow balcony just large enough for 1 chair. The leasing manager asked how long I planned to stay. "Month to month," I said. She tapped a box on the form. People usually say that when they don't know. Then it's accurate. I signed the lease. I told Nina first, then Brooke. Nina asked whether I needed help moving. Brooke sent back a single word. "Okay." David did not respond for nearly an hour. Then he called. "You rented an apartment?" "Yes." "You said a few days." I said I would decide what I needed next. "And this is what you need?" "For now." He was silent. "Where is it?" I gave him the address. Another silence, longer this time. "Can I see it?" he asked. I looked around the hotel room at my open suitcase and the 2 plastic grocery bags containing everything I had bought for a kitchen that wasn't mine yet. "Tomorrow," I said. He arrived at 6, carrying a cardboard box. Inside were the green sweater I had already packed, my missing phone charger, 3 pieces of mail, the white roses from our anniversary, and the album. "I told Brooke it should stay at the house," I said. "She told me it belonged with you." He set the box on the bare kitchen counter and looked around the apartment. The furniture was square, beige, and impossible to have feelings about. My unopened groceries sat on the floor beside the refrigerator. "How long are you planning to live like this?" he asked. "Long enough." "For what?" I looked at the album lying beneath the roses. "To find out whether you miss me," I said, "or just everything I do." David's eyes moved from me to the box. "I miss both," he said. The honesty caught me off guard. He took off his coat and draped it over the back of one of the beige dining chairs. It slipped off. He tried again. The coat fell a second time. "This furniture rejects intimacy," he said. "It came with the apartment. I assumed you hadn't chosen that couch. What's wrong with it? It looks like it reports suspicious activity." I almost smiled. David picked up the roses. I had trimmed them 3 days earlier, but he had removed them from the pitcher and wrapped the stems in damp paper towels and aluminum foil. The edges of the white petals had begun to brown. "I didn't know if you had a vase," he said. "I don't. I should have brought the pitcher. It was your mother's. She's not using it. Good to know the afterlife has relaxed table settings." That did make him smile. It made me angry at how easily it happened. He found a tall water glass in the cabinet and arranged the roses inside. They leaned in every direction, too many stems for too little space. Very elegant, I said. Military precision. Nothing about that is precise. Hostile civilian environment. He set them on the counter. Then there was nothing left to do with his hands. I pointed toward the box. Why did you bring the album? Brooke told me to. You usually resist instructions better than that. She said she didn't want it at the house. Did she say why? She said it felt like evidence. I looked at the cream cover. David followed my gaze. That's what you've made it. No, you did that when you used it to tell your version. I didn't set out to erase you. But you saw all those pages. I saw photographs. With captions you wrote. I was trying to explain what those years felt like. To whom? Our daughters. They lived those years. Not from my side. I pulled out one of the beige chairs and sat. So tell them your side. Tell them you were tired. Tell them you resented me. Tell them you hated being congratulated for supporting a life you didn't choose. I chose your life. No, you chose me. There's a difference. His face tightened. I had never said that to him before. I wasn't sure I had known it before. When we married, David had treated my service like a difficult relative he respected, but didn't want staying too long. He liked the competence it gave me, the health coverage, the stories that made strangers lean closer at parties. He disliked everything that could call me away without consulting him. I thought we had made peace with that contradiction. Maybe we had only gotten good at stepping around it. You think I didn't choose any of it? He asked. I think you chose it repeatedly. I also think it cost you. Then why can't that be in the book? It can. But why does your cost require my disappearance? He walked to the counter and adjusted the flowers again. I shouldn't have said no one, he said. It was the closest he had come. I waited. I know you did things for them. Things. That isn't what I meant. What did you mean? He turned. Why do you keep demanding exact language? Because you're using vague language to hide an exact belief. I believe parenting happens in a room, Rachel. Only in a room, mostly. So every time Nina calls me from 400 miles away, I should tell her I'm not physically qualified to care? They're adults now, and I'm still parenting them. He looked toward the balcony. This is pointless. No, it's uncomfortable. That's what you used to say when you wanted people to keep working. Usually because the work wasn't finished. We're not troops. I know that. Do you? I stood. You came here. What did you want? He seemed surprised by the question. I wanted to see where you were. Now you have. I wanted to know you were all right. I am. You're living in a furnished box with 1 water glass. I bought 4. Then you're flourishing. His sarcasm should have irritated me. Instead, I heard fear underneath it. He walked to the balcony door and looked out. The river was visible between 2 apartment buildings, gray water under a gray sky. There's only 1 chair out there, he said. That's all that fits. Is that why? I didn't answer. He turned around. You think I don't miss you? I wake up and reach across the bed. I made coffee yesterday and warmed your mug before I remembered you weren't there. I keep hearing the garage door and thinking it's you. I folded my arms across my chest. He continued, but yes, I also miss knowing where things are. I miss dinner being handled. I miss not having to remember Denise hates arugula for some reason. She says it tastes judgmental. That doesn't mean anything. It means, don't put it in the salad. This is what I'm talking about. You know all this useless information. It isn't useless if you want Denise to eat. He came closer. I miss the way you make the useless things matter. That was almost beautiful. Then he added, I don't know why that isn't enough for you. There it was. I looked at him. Because I don't want to be loved as infrastructure. His face went still. I never said that. No, you said I raised no one while describing everything I did for everyone. That is not what I said. It's what you keep saying. He picked up his coat. It slid off the chair again before he could get hold of it. At the door, he paused. Friday dinner is at 7, he said. Denise changed it. I'm not coming. Because of me? Yes. At least you're honest. I've been honest. He opened the door. David. He looked back. Don't tell people I'm taking a little break. His jaw tightened. What should I tell them? That we're living separately while we decide whether we can repair this. He glanced around the apartment. So this is a separation, for now. He left without saying goodbye. I locked the door and stood with my hand on the deadbolt until his footsteps disappeared down the hall. The roses lasted 4 more days. I bought a ceramic pitcher at a discount store, blue with a crooked white stripe, but the flowers were already sagging by the time I transferred them. I kept them anyway. Every morning, 1 or 2 petals dropped onto the counter. I swept them into my palm and threw them away. The apartment remained too quiet. At home, David filled rooms without speaking. Cabinet doors closed harder. Television followed him from room to room. He whistled 3 notes from songs he couldn't identify and repeated them until I wanted to confess to something. Here, the refrigerator made a soft click every 20 minutes. That was the main event. I arranged my clothes, groceries, medications, and paperwork. Then I rearranged them because no one was there to tell me I had chosen the wrong shelf. I bought 1 yellow dish towel. David hated yellow in kitchens because he believed it made white appliances look old. The apartment appliances were already old, so there was nothing left to protect. On Friday afternoon, Denise texted, I don't need details, just checking whether you're okay and whether I should make less salad. I wrote back, I'm okay, make less salad. She sent a heart, then a second message. David just called to ask what kind of lettuce. I put my phone down. 10 minutes later, David called. I know what you're going to say, he began. Then this should be efficient. Denise says no arugula. I told you that. The store has 6 kinds of lettuce. Buy romaine, bagged or whole. I stared at the yellow towel hanging from the oven handle. David. What? You know how to buy lettuce. I'm asking what we normally bring. We normally bring whatever I make. Exactly. No, that isn't exactly. He exhaled into the phone. You're punishing me with salad. I promise you, if I ever punish you, you'll recognize the scale. That sounded threatening. It was comforting. He laughed, then caught himself. Just buy romaine, I said. After that, I stopped answering questions the list already covered. Where did we keep the spare garage remote? On the list. Had I renewed the newspaper subscription? On the list. What time was the dentist appointment? On the list. When he called to ask what gift we had planned for his cousin, I told him there was no we. You picked something, he said. Yes. What? A set of barbecue tools. Where are they? In the hall closet. Wrapped? Yes. Can I give them to him? You're asking permission to give your cousin a gift bought with our money? I'm asking whether you'll hold it against me. No. He was quiet. Thank you, he said. That was the first time I realized David did not know which parts of my care had been generous and which parts he had simply come to regard as weather. Brooke arrived at my apartment the following Sunday carrying a grocery bag and the expression of someone executing a duty under protest. I brought food, she said. I have food. You have mustard, eggs, and 4 yogurts. How do you know? Nina asked what you bought. I stepped aside. You 2 need hobbies. She walked in and surveyed the room. Her gaze paused on the yellow towel. Dad would hate that. I know. Is that why you bought it? No. It was $2. So partly. Maybe 20 cents worth. She put the bag on the counter. Pasta, tomatoes, coffee, oranges, and a wedge of cheese emerged from it. I'm not starving, I said. I didn't say you were. You brought enough pasta for an infantry company. I don't know what that means in noodles. Neither does the army. That's why we have leftovers. Brooke smiled despite herself. Then she saw the album on the small dining table. You haven't opened it. No. She touched the cover. Can I? It's your book. She sat and turned through the pages slowly. I washed the oranges even though they didn't need washing. For several minutes, she said nothing. Then she stopped at a photograph of David holding a cake while Nina leaned over the candles. "Who took this?" she asked. "I did." She turned the page. "And this one?" "Me?" Another page. "This?" I set the timer, but I didn't make it back before the picture. Brooke looked closer. At the far edge, a blurred hand reached into the frame. She moved backward through the album, studying photographs she had already handled dozens of times. "Why aren't you in any of these?" she asked. I dried an orange with the yellow towel. "Because," I said, "I was holding the camera." Brooke stared at the blurred hand. "That could be anybody," she said. "It's wearing my wedding ring." She leaned closer. "It could be a married anybody. Who broke into our house to start the camera? I'm not saying that's what happened. You're conducting a rigorous review." She turned another page. David stood behind a backyard grill, smiling beneath a caption that read, "Dad made every summer feel like a vacation." "I wrote this one," she said. "He did make good summers." "You bought that grill." "Yes." "You also planned the trip in the next picture." "Yes." "And this cake came from the bakery you called." "Yes." Brooke frowned at me. "How do you remember all of this?" "Because I did it." That sounded like a point. It was an answer. She returned to the album. "Dad gave me notes. I wasn't trying to leave you out." "I know. I asked him about you." "What did he say?" "That the book should focus on the family side. He said you already had plenty of pictures about your career." My hands stopped on the orange. "Did he?" "He wasn't mean about it. David is rarely mean while he's arranging something." Brooke closed the book halfway. "You make him sound manipulative. I think he wanted one particular story told. Isn't that what everybody wants?" "Probably. Including you." "Yes." She seemed disappointed that I agreed. I sat across from her. The apartment table was too small for the album and both our elbows, so we negotiated space without discussing it. "I'm not trying to replace his story with mine," I said. "That's what people say when they think theirs is more true. His story is true. He was there for things I missed. He carried the daily load when I couldn't. He was lonely, and I don't think I understood how lonely. You didn't." "No." "He used to walk around after your calls checking locks. I pictured David moving through the house after hearing my voice from thousands of miles away. I had imagined him relieved. I had not imagined him restless. Why? I don't know. He'd check the back door, then the windows. Sometimes he'd clean the kitchen even if it was already clean. That sounds like him. He said he couldn't sleep after talking to you." I looked at the blue pitcher. The roses were gone, but I had left the pitcher empty on the counter. He never told me. "Maybe you never asked. Maybe." Brooke shifted in her chair. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Agreeing with everything so I can't stay mad." "I'm not agreeing with everything. You're very reasonable. It's aggressive." I laughed. "I'm serious," she said. "I know, that's why it's funny." Her mouth twitched, but she fought it. I reached across the album and touched her wrist. "I'm sorry those calls felt like reports. I thought asking specific questions showed I was paying attention. Sometimes it did. Sometimes? Sometimes it felt good that you remembered. Both can be true. I hate when people say that, because it means you don't get to throw either thing away." She pulled her hand back, not angrily. "I don't know what to do with both. You don't have to do anything. Dad wants me to say he raised us. Nina wants me to admit you were erased. You want me not to choose, which somehow feels like a third assignment. That's fair. Stop agreeing." "No." That got a laugh out of her. We made pasta because Brooke had brought enough for a platoon and because food gave us something to look at besides each other. She chopped tomatoes too large. I started to correct her, then didn't. She noticed. "You can say it." "Say what?" "That these are badly cut. They'll cook. You think they're badly cut. I've survived worse vegetables. This is unbearable." I took the knife and cut one tomato into smaller pieces. "There. The standard has been demonstrated. Thank you, Sergeant Tomato. I retired, not from produce." We ate at the little table with the album closed beside us. Halfway through dinner, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and turned it face down. "Your father?" I asked. "Yes." "You can answer. He'll ask where I am. Tell him. He'll act weird. He already knows you visit me. He doesn't know I drove down today. Brooke lived a little over an hour away. Far enough that showing up required intention. Close enough that she could pretend it didn't. Why didn't you tell him? Because he would have asked me to bring you something or tell you something or see whether you looked happy without him. Do I?" She studied me. "You look organized. That isn't what I asked." "I know." Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered. "Hey, Dad." I gathered our plates and took them to the sink. "No, I'm not home. I'm at Mom's." She paused. "No, I didn't tell you because I didn't know I had to." Another pause. "We're eating dinner." I turned on the water, though I could still hear his voice rising through the phone without understanding the words. "No," Brooke said. "I'm not reporting on her apartment." I shut off the faucet. Her eyes met mine. "I'll call you when I get home," she said, and ended the call. For several seconds, she stared at the screen. "Is he all right?" I asked. "He wanted to know if you had put up pictures." "Why?" "He thinks if you put up pictures, you're planning to stay." I looked around the beige room. The walls were still bare. That is impressive emotional logic. He's driving me crazy. Be careful. Complaining about your father to me could be interpreted as choosing a side. Don't enjoy this. I don't. She looked at me. You do a little, maybe 20 cents worth. Brooke left with the remaining pasta and the album. She asked before taking it, which made me feel strangely relieved. "I want to go through the captions," she said. "You don't have to fix it. I'm not fixing it. What are you doing?" "I don't know." I let that be enough. David called the following evening. "What did you say to her?" I was on the balcony in my single chair, wearing a coat and holding coffee that had gone cold. "Hello to you, too." Brooke spent an hour asking me who took photographs. She looked through the album. "At your apartment?" "Yes." "So this is what you're doing now." "What am I doing?" "Building your case." "No." She asked whether I knew you arranged Nina's graduation dinner. "Did you?" "That isn't the point. It was her question. You told her to ask. I didn't." "Rachel?" She never cared who made reservations before. Maybe the album made her wonder. The album was a gift. So was the dinner. He was quiet. A cold wind moved off the river. I tucked my free hand under my arm. "Did you really tell her the book should focus on the family side because I already had enough pictures of my career? I said you had plenty of recognition. That wasn't what I asked." "Yes?" I said something like that. Why was I not part of the family side? I didn't mean it literally. You keep saying things you don't mean literally, and somehow they all mean the same thing. His voice sharpened. "Do you know how many walls in that house have your certificates on them? 2. How many boxes of medals and photographs are in the closet? 3. How many times did people shake my hand and tell me I must be proud of you? I don't know. Hundreds. Were you?" "Of course I was." "Then why do you say it like an accusation?" He didn't answer. I watched headlights move on the road beyond the river. "Finally," he said, "I wanted one thing that showed what I did." I closed my eyes. "You could have had that." "No, I couldn't." "Yes. You could have said you stayed when staying was brutal. You could have said you kept the house running. You could have said you were angry and scared and tired of being treated like an accessory. That sounds good when you say it. It would have sounded good when you said it. I'm not you. I know. You walk into a room and people listen. Even when you're wrong, you sound like there's a form everyone forgot to fill out. That isn't always a compliment. It isn't one now." I got up and went inside. The apartment door felt too close to the balcony, the kitchen too close to the table. There was nowhere to pace without passing the same objects. David continued. "When you came home, everybody rearranged themselves around you." "I didn't ask them to. You didn't have to." "What does that mean?" "It means routines changed. The house changed. You changed where things went because your system was better. You made schedules because we were apparently living like raccoons. You corrected things I'd been doing for months. I was trying to fit back in. You took over. That stopped me. He had never said it before, but I could see pieces of truth inside it. Every return had felt to me like arriving at a machine that was running incorrectly. I tightened, labeled, restored, improved. I thought usefulness was the quickest route home. I probably did, I said. David gave a small, bitter laugh. There you go. What? Calmly accepting responsibility like you're signing for a shipment. How would you prefer I do it? I don't know. Feel bad. I do feel bad. You sound fine. I learned not to sound like the worst thing happening inside me, and the rest of us learned to guess. We were both quiet. I'm sorry, I said, for coming home and treating the life you built while I was gone, like it was waiting for inspection. His breathing caught slightly. I continued, that doesn't make what you said true. I know you cared about them. That isn't enough. It has to be a beginning. It might be. He didn't speak for several seconds. Then he said, you left again. This time, no one ordered me to. That makes it worse. It makes it mine. He let out a breath. Do you regret any of it? My service? Yes. I looked toward the bare wall where, according to David's theory, a photograph would become a declaration. No, I said. I regret what it cost. I regret things I missed. I regret pretending the cost was always noble. But I don't regret serving. I knew that. Do you regret marrying me? The silence on the line stretched so long that I heard the refrigerator click off behind me. No, he said finally. I regret how much of me disappeared into waiting. I rested my hand on the small table. So do I said. David was quiet for a moment. What does that mean? He asked. It means I disappeared into waiting, too. You were the one leaving. And every time I left, part of me stayed pointed home. Every time I came back, part of me was already preparing to go again. That was your choice. Yes. He seemed to expect me to argue. I'm not saying the choices were equal, I continued. I'm saying neither of us came through them whole. I don't know what you want me to do with that. Nothing tonight. You always get to decide when the conversation is over. That's fair. He made an irritated sound. It isn't helpful when you agree. I've heard that recently. From Brooke. Yes. Of course. There was that tone again, the suggestion that my relationships with the daughters were happening at his expense. She took the album, I said. I know. She asked. I didn't accuse you of stealing it. You're accusing me of something. I'm accusing you of turning everybody against me. I haven't. Brooke questioned me for an hour. Nina barely answers my calls. You moved out and sent me a 2-page operating manual for my own house. I sent you information. You sent me proof of everything you think I can't do without you. That interpretation had not occurred to me. I looked at the empty blue pitcher, then at the yellow towel. I thought the list would make it easier. Of course you did. What does that mean? It means maybe you need me to fail. I stood very still. David, have I ever asked you to fail? You're sitting in that apartment waiting to see what falls apart. No. I'm sitting here trying to see what remains when I stop holding everything. Same difference. It isn't. To you. The line went quiet again. Finally, I said, Good night. Good night, Rachel. He hung up first. The next morning, Denise arrived at 10 carrying a glass casserole dish with a red plastic lid. I hadn't told her the apartment number. David must have, which felt invasive until I remembered I had given him the address without conditions. I'm not staying, she announced when I opened the door. Good morning. I brought baked ziti. It's 10 in the morning. It'll still be ziti later. She walked inside before I invited her. Denise was 61, 5 feet tall, and moved like she expected doors to apologize for being closed. Her silver hair was cut in a sharp bob that made every nod look final. She placed the dish on my counter and surveyed the apartment. "This couch is depressing. It came with the place." "I hope so. You and David have similar furniture standards. Don't use that as evidence you belong together." I looked at her. She shrugged out of her coat. "I said I wasn't staying. I didn't say I had no opinions." "Coffee?" "Yes." I poured 2 mugs. Denise took hers black, then added 3 spoonfuls of sugar while maintaining eye contact. "How was dinner?" I asked. "David brought 4 heads of romaine and no dressing. He knows dressing exists. He said salad was your department." I sat across from her. "Did he?" "I told him lettuce doesn't recognize marital boundaries." "That sounds right." Art told him to stop being an ass. Then they spent 20 minutes discussing a leaking gutter, which is how men recover from emotional honesty. I wrapped both hands around my mug. "Did David send you?" Denise laughed. "David couldn't send me across the street." "Then why are you here?" "To see if you're all right." "Also because I've wanted to say something to both of you for years, and this appears to be the season for poor judgment." I waited. She took a drink of coffee. "You made that man look better than he is. That isn't a very neighborly thing to say. It isn't entirely an insult. I'm listening. You remembered things for him. You brought gifts with both your names on them. You called after he said something rude and explained he was tired or worried or suffering from low blood sugar. He does get mean when he's hungry. He's a grown man, Rachel. He can recognize a sandwich." I looked toward the refrigerator. Denise continued. "You translated him. After a while, the rest of us forgot he wasn't speaking clearly. Are you saying this is my fault?" "No, I'm saying you participated in making him comfortable." That was different enough to hurt. "He was comfortable for me too," I said. "I know. He did carry the family when I was gone. I know that too. We all knew it." He made sure. Her eyes met mine over the mug. I almost defended him. The impulse was so automatic I felt it like reaching for a light switch in a familiar room. Denise saw the hesitation. "There. That." "What?" "You're about to tell me why it was understandable." "It was understandable. Understanding is not a mop. You don't have to use it every time somebody makes a mess." I laughed despite myself. "Did you drive here just to insult my coping mechanisms and bring Ziti?" "Right." She looked around again. "Are you going back?" "I don't know. That's probably the first answer you've given in 20 years without preparing everyone for it. I say I don't know, no. You say, I'll find out." Completely different tone. I hated how accurate that was. Before leaving, she stood at the door and looked at the blank walls. "Put up 1 picture," she said. "David thinks that means I'm staying. David thinks romaine requires strategic support." After she left, I ate ziti at 11:15 and spent the rest of the day updating my resume. Retirement had sounded spacious when I imagined it. In practice, it felt like entering a room after the furniture had been removed. For 8 months, I had filled that room with other people's needs. I found a 6-week contract at a local appliance distributor that needed help reconciling its warehouse inventory before the end of the quarter. The advertisement used the phrase self-directed problem solver 4 times, which usually meant no one knew where anything was. I applied anyway. The operations manager called the next day. He was a cheerful man named Leon who admitted within 5 minutes that the company had somehow ordered 97 left-side refrigerator doors and 6 right-side doors. "Do people prefer opening refrigerators from one direction?" he asked. "Not at that ratio. Can you start Monday?" "Yes." The work was neither glamorous nor difficult, but it gave my mornings a shape that did not depend on who had forgotten what. I wore steel-toed boots, drank bad break-room coffee, and spent hours tracing mistakes through handwritten receiving logs. No one knew anything about my marriage. No one asked what I had done with all my free time. At 5:30 each evening, I left. The first time Leon called after hours, I watched the phone ring. Then I answered because I was still myself. "Do you know where the shipment count sheets went?" he asked. "Bottom drawer of the gray cabinet." I looked there. "Did you move the packing tape?" A pause. Found them. I laughed after we hung up. Apparently, men searching behind objects was going to be a recurring feature of civilian life. David called less often that week. When he did, he had reasons that sounded official. The bank had mailed replacement cards. Did I want mine at the apartment? Yes. Art had returned the latter. Did I want it in the garage or basement? Garage. The dentist had an earlier appointment available. Should he take it? He was 57 years old. He did not appreciate that answer. On Thursday, he called without a practical question. Nina isn't speaking to me, he said. She spoke to you Tuesday. She sent a thumbs-up emoji. That is not speech. What did you ask her? Whether she thought I was a bad father. I closed my eyes. Why would you ask her that? Because apparently I'm not allowed to say I was a good one. No one said that. She did. Did she use those words? She said a good father wouldn't need to make you disappear. That sounded like Nina. What do you want me to do? I asked. Talk to her? No. Rachel, I'm not mediating between you. You always help her understand what I mean. I looked across the warehouse break room. Leon was trying to shake a bag of pretzels out of the vending machine by glaring at it. Maybe you need to say what you mean, I replied. She's twisting everything. Then untwist it yourself. You don't have to sound pleased. I'm not pleased. You've been waiting years for them to see me this way. No. How do I know you don't? That's part of the problem. You've decided my love is a competing version of yours. He was silent. Then he said, Can we have a family call Sunday? For what? To talk without everybody running to separate rooms. We live in 3 different cities. You know what I mean? I agreed because Nina and Brooke did. That was my first mistake. My second was letting David host the video call. His face appeared too close to the camera, forehead enormous, chin missing. Move the phone back, Brooke said. I can see everybody. We can see your pores, Nina told him. David adjusted the phone against a fruit bowl. For a moment, the ceiling fan filled the screen. Then he sat at our kitchen table with the anniversary flowers behind him, now replaced by grocery store carnations. Brooke joined from her couch. The album was visible on the coffee table beside her. Nina sat cross-legged on her hotel-style bed at home, wrapped in a blanket. I was at my small dining table with the blue pitcher and no flowers. David began, I don't want this family split into camps. No one does, I said. Then we need to stop treating one angry sentence like it defines everything. Brooke's expression tightened. Nina said, It wasn't one sentence? It was the album. The album was supposed to honor what I contributed. It did, Brooke said. It just did it by removing Mom. David leaned closer to the camera. You made it. With your captions, which you agreed with. I didn't think about them. That isn't my fault. No, Brooke said. But you did. He stared at her. I still think you did more of the day-to-day raising when Mom was away, she continued. I remember that. I'm not taking it back. Thank you, David said. But that isn't the same as saying she raised no one. His gratitude vanished. He looked at Nina. And you? She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. I'm not answering that. It's a simple question. No, Dad. It's a loyalty test. I am not testing anyone. You asked me for a list of appointments you took me to. I was trying to establish facts. I watched his face as the phrase left his mouth. He heard me in it. That seemed to anger him more. So facts don't matter now? He asked. Not when you're using them to make yourself the only person who mattered, Nina said. David looked toward me on the screen. Are you happy? He asked. No, because this is what you wanted. I felt the old reflex rise, the urge to soften him, rescue the call, give everyone a sentence they could live with. I let it pass. Brooke spoke before I could. Stop blaming her because we heard you, she said. David's face went still. Then his square on the screen disappeared. For a moment, the 3 remaining squares stayed silent. Brooke leaned toward her screen. Did he hang up? He may have dropped the phone, Nina said. He hung up, I said. How do you know? Your father doesn't drop things quietly. Brooke sat back. I shouldn't have said that. Why not? Nina asked. Because now he's going to think we all attacked him. He already thought that. That doesn't make it better. Nina looked toward me. Are you going to call him? No. Both of them seemed surprised. Brooke frowned. He's upset. So are you. He's alone. So am I. That sounded like scorekeeping. It wasn't. Nina pulled the blanket up to her chin. It was a little. I looked at the two of them on my laptop screen. If one of you hangs up angrily, do you expect me to stop talking to the other person and come after you? Brooke answered first. Depends how right I am. Nina? No. That's because you're adults. Your father is too. Brooke rubbed her palms over her face. This family call went well. We saw Dad's forehead, learned lettuce is political, and watched him leave a meeting he scheduled, Nina said. I'd call that range. Brooke gave her a look. You enjoy being mean when you think you have permission. Nina's expression changed. What does that mean? It means Mom left, so now you get to say everything you've always wanted to say about Dad. I have always said what I wanted about Dad. Exactly. Brooke, I said. No. She's been waiting for this. She never understood why I was closer to him. Nina lowered the blanket. I understood. I just didn't agree with your version where being close to him required treating Mom like a visiting aunt. I never did that. You still introduce her as Rachel sometimes, because that's her name. You introduce Dad as Dad. Brooke's mouth opened, then closed. I said, We're not doing this. Why? Nina asked. It's relevant. Because you're moving from what your father said to prosecuting each other's entire relationship with me. Brooke stared down at the album on her coffee table. I don't know what to call you when I'm talking to people, she said. The admission was so quiet, I almost missed it. You can call me Rachel, but Nina calls you Mom. That's Nina. And Dad always said you never tried to replace our mother. I didn't. That doesn't mean you're not our mother now, Nina said. Brooke's eyes flashed. Can you stop deciding things faster than everybody else? I decided 20 years ago. I didn't. That's okay, I said. Neither of them looked convinced. You don't owe me a word, I continued. You owe me honesty and basic courtesy. On ambitious days, I'd also like a phone call before you drive an hour with surprise pasta. Brooke's mouth twitched. Nina looked away from the camera. What? I asked. Nothing. Nina, she sighed. I had something I was going to tell you both before Dad turned the call into a census. Brooke said, Are you sick? No. Then don't begin like that. My company offered me a position in Denver. Brooke blinked. Denver? Colorado? No, the private Denver I keep in my closet. How long have you known? 3 days. I sat forward. Is it the regional position? Nina's expression sharpened. How did you know about that? You mentioned they might open it last spring. That was one sentence. I was paying attention. The words hung between us. Brooke looked down. I wished I had chosen different language, but Nina smiled a little. They want an answer in 2 weeks, she said. Do you want it? I want the job. I don't know if I want Denver. What's wrong with Denver? Brooke asked. It's far. You already live 400 miles away. From Mom and Dad. You're only an hour from them. I'm not stopping you. I didn't say you were. Brooke folded her arms. It sounded like you were making me responsible for staying close. Nina stared at her. Can we have one conversation where you don't volunteer to be accused? Can we have one where you don't sound like you're above it? I raised my hand. They both stopped. The gesture was automatic. So was their response. I lowered my hand slowly. Sorry, I said. Nina laughed. Brooke didn't. What do you need to know before you decide? I asked. Nina thought. Whether I'm moving towards something or just leaving. That's annoyingly healthy, Brooke said. Thank you. Not a compliment. It rarely is in this family. I asked about the work, the team, the travel, the cost of housing, and whether the salary increase was real after taxes. Brooke asked whether Nina owned enough winter clothes and whether Denver had decent Thai food. Between us, we covered the practical and the ridiculous. David's empty square remained on the screen. Eventually, Nina said, "I wanted to ask Dad what he thought." "You still can," I said. He hung up. "Call him tomorrow. Will he answer?" "I don't know." Brooke leaned closer to her camera. "You could tell him to answer." "No." Nina studied me. "You really aren't going to mediate. No. That's inconvenient. I'm discovering a gift for it." We ended the call after another 20 minutes. I brushed my teeth, closed the laptop, and did not call David. At 11:40, he sent a message. "I won't participate in another ambush." I read it twice and put the phone on the nightstand. The next morning, Nina called him. He let it go to voicemail. She did not ask me to intervene, but she sent me a screenshot of the call log with the message, "Adult behavior." I replied, "His behavior is his." She sent back an angry face. At the warehouse, 97 left side refrigerator doors had been joined by 43 cooktop control panels entered under the inventory code for dishwasher hoses. Leon stood in the aisle holding one panel like an artifact from a vanished civilization. "Could you stay another 6 weeks?" he asked. "I've been here 9 days. I believe in planning. You believe in transferring panic to the future. Is that a yes? I'll think about it." The offer pleased me more than I wanted to admit. Not because the work mattered greatly, but because someone had seen what I could do without knowing anything about the sacrifices that taught me to do it. There was no ceremony, no handshake for David, no family story attached. Just a man in a warehouse who wanted the numbers to stop lying. I stayed until 5:30, exactly 5:30. When I stepped outside, David was parked beside my car. He got out holding 2 paper cups. "How did you know where I worked? You told me the company name. I didn't give you the address. The internet remains operational." He held out 1 cup. Coffee. I took it. He had warmed the cup sleeve beneath the heater vent. I could tell because the cardboard was almost hot. "You drove 30 minutes to bring me coffee?" I was nearby. Why? Shopping. For appliances? For a silent clock. I looked at him. "The ticking was driving me crazy," he said. The cheap dining room clock had ticked through our argument. I wondered if he remembered that too. "Did you buy one?" "No. They all look like office clocks." "They are office clocks." "Then why put them in houses? Rebellion." He leaned against his car. The wind lifted his hair at the crown, revealing the thin spot he insisted was an optical illusion. Nina called. I said, "I know." "You didn't answer." "I was working." "You work from home on Mondays." "I was doing something." "She had news." His expression flickered. "What kind of news?" "It's hers." "You know, though." "Yes. So once again, you know what's happening with them and I don't." "She tried to tell you." "During the call?" "After you left." "I didn't leave." I ended a conversation where 3 people were attacking me. 4 people were in the conversation. "You know what I mean? I do. That's why I'm correcting you." He pushed away from the car. "You could have called." "No." "Why not?" "Because Nina asked to talk to her father." "Not her father after I prepared him." "I don't need preparation. You're angry that you didn't get it. That's not the same thing. It is today." He looked toward the warehouse doors as workers began coming out in 2s and 3s. "Can we go somewhere?" he asked. "I'm tired. I don't want to do this in a parking lot." "Then don't." I handed the coffee back. I hadn't taken a sip. His face tightened. "I'm trying. You brought me coffee and followed me to work. I didn't follow you. You found me without asking whether I wanted to be found. Why does everything have to be wrong?" The question sounded less angry than exhausted. "It doesn't," I said. "The coffee was kind. But kindness isn't permission." He stared at the cup in his hand. "I need to get my winter coat and the rest of my files," I said. "Can I come by tomorrow? You don't have to make an appointment to enter your own house. I'm being courteous. Come whenever you want. I'll be there at 6. He nodded and got into his car. The next evening, I found a new clock hanging above the dining room doorway. It had a white face, black hands, and no second hand. David was standing beneath it with a level. "It's crooked," I said. "It isn't. It leans right. The doorway leans left. That is not better." He lowered the level. "Hello, Rachel. Hello." My winter coat was draped over a dining chair. Beside it sat a banker's box containing the files I had requested. "You packed them. You're here to pack things." I thought I'd save time. I looked toward the sideboard. The space where the album had rested was bare. David followed my gaze. "Brooke still has it." "I know. She called me today." "Good. She asked why I didn't include the package you sent the year the pipes froze." I had forgotten about the package until that moment. Thermal socks, hand warmers, a new shutoff wrench, and a ridiculous pair of battery-heated gloves David claimed made him look like a comic book villain. "What did you tell her?" "That I didn't remember it." "Did you?" "After she described the gloves." He set the level on the table. "I remembered being the one under the sink." "You were. And you were on the phone telling me which valve to turn." "Yes. I didn't need you to tell me. I know. You kept asking if I was sure. You flooded the laundry room the year before. That pipe cracked. After you hit it with a wrench, it was already compromised." I smiled. He almost did. Then he said, "Brooke thinks every memory has to be re-audited now. It doesn't. She thinks I lied." "Did you?" "I left things out." "On purpose?" "Some." The answer was quiet. I took off my gloves and placed them on top of the box. Why? Because I wanted the book to be about what I did. We've established that. No. I wanted one thing that was mine. They aren't yours, David. I know they're adults. That isn't what I meant. His mouth tightened. You came home and they lit up. Every time. It didn't matter how angry they'd been the day before. You walked in with bags and stories and that uniform, and suddenly I was the man who made sure the trash went out. You think they loved me more? I think they missed you more. There was no accusation in his voice now, only the old injury beneath it. That isn't the same, I said. It felt the same. I sat at the table. He remained standing across from me. "I was jealous," he said. "There. Exact language. I let the admission settle. Of me? Of what leaving made you? What did it make me? Important." I looked at the silent clock over his shoulder. "David," I said, "I would have traded every dramatic homecoming for one ordinary year when nobody had to miss me. I know that now. Do you?" He pulled out the chair opposite mine. "I know I took the part of our life that hurt me," he said, and turned it into the part that proved I mattered. It was closer than he had ever come to naming it. My eyes burned. I looked down at my gloves. He continued, "I still believe I carried more of the daily parenting. I don't know how to pretend I don't. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking? Why does more have to mean all?" He looked toward the bare sideboard. "It doesn't," he said. I wanted to believe him. The wanting frightened me more than disbelief. My phone rang inside my purse. "Brooke," I answered. "Mom," she said, breathless. "I need to tell you why I made the album for Dad." "Why?" I asked. David's eyes lifted to mine. "Is he there?" Brooke said. "Yes. Put me on speaker." I hesitated. "Do you want to talk to both of us, or do you want me to hear something?" "Both." I set the phone on the table and tapped the speaker icon. "You're on," I said. Brooke inhaled. "The album wasn't my idea." David sat back. "It was partly yours," he said. "You called me after Mom's retirement dinner." I looked at him. He rubbed a thumb across the edge of the table. "I remember. You said you wanted to do something for the anniversary. That isn't a crime." "No one said it was," I replied. Brooke continued. "You said the retirement dinner had been 3 hours of people talking about Mom's service. You said the anniversary was going to become another celebration of her." David looked at the silent clock. "I had just sat through a lot of speeches," he said. "So you asked me to make a family album," Brooke said. "Something that showed what happened at home while she was serving. That's still not wrong. No, it isn't. I thought it was a good idea. I leaned closer to the phone. It was a good idea. Brooke's voice cracked. Stop making me feel better. I'm not. Yes, you are. You always do that when I tell you something that hurts you. I looked at David. He did not meet my eyes. All right, I said. I'll listen. Brooke took another breath. Dad sent me the captions a few at a time. Some were just dates or places. Some were full paragraphs, and I shortened them. Because the website had character limits, David said. No, Dad, because some of them were bitter. He flinched. What did they say? I asked. Brooke was quiet. Brooke, David said, you don't need to read private emails aloud. They weren't private. They were instructions for a gift. I was venting. To her? I asked. David turned toward me. I didn't say anything I haven't said now. That isn't reassuring. Brooke said, one of them said, Rachel got the homecomings. I got the years between them. The sentence moved through the room and settled somewhere under my ribs. David closed his eyes. Another quiet line came from the phone. I thought it was sad. It was, I said. I thought the book would show him we knew what he did. That was kind. Mom, I'm not trying to make you feel better. It was kind to want your father to know he mattered. Then why does the album feel awful now? Because gratitude isn't supposed to require a missing person. David stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. You keep saying I deliberately erased you. You rejected photographs, Brooke said. He turned toward the phone. I rejected duplicates. You rejected the one at the beach. Rachel wasn't overseas in that picture. Exactly. He stopped. I remembered the photograph. All four of us on the North Carolina coast, taken by a woman who had been walking past with a terrier. David and I stood behind Nina and Brooke, my chin resting near his shoulder because the sand made us uneven. Why did you reject that one? I asked. The page was about the year I changed jobs. You said it was too couple-focused, Brooke told him. You said the album needed to be about family. David paced toward the kitchen and back. We have 100 pictures from that beach. Not in the album, Brooke said, because I was choosing other moments. Mom was in the other moments too. He braced both hands on the back of his chair. Brooke's voice softened. Did you want her to see it? What kind of question is that? A direct one. Of course I wanted her to see it. Did you want her to notice she wasn't there? David looked at me. The house seemed to hold its breath with us. No, he said. I believed him. That made it worse in a way I could not immediately explain. He had not created an album to wound me. He had created one in which my absence felt natural to him. I wanted her to see me, he said. There it was. I looked down at the banker's box beside my coat. You could only imagine that, I said, if I disappeared. No, you just said it. That isn't what I meant. Then tell me what you meant. He dropped into the chair. I wanted one story where I wasn't supporting somebody else's accomplishment. Our marriage was not my accomplishment. It felt like it. Brooke made a small sound through the phone. David looked toward it. I'm sorry you got pulled into this. You pulled me. I asked you to make a book. You asked me to prove something. His face tightened. Fine. No, not fine. I agreed, because part of me wanted to prove it too. I could hear her crying now. Prove what? I asked. That I was grateful to him. You are. That he was the one who stayed. He was. That I didn't need you as much. David's eyes closed. I said nothing. Brooke continued, words tumbling faster. I thought that was loyalty. I thought if I made the book about Dad, he'd stop acting like every time I called you first meant I had forgotten him. Did he say that? I asked. Not exactly. David spoke sharply. I never told her not to call you. No. You'd ask why I hadn't called you. That's a normal question. Not every time. He looked at the phone as if he could force her to understand his intention through it. I said, Brooke, where are you? At home. Are you alone? Yes. Do you want Nina? No. She'll get angry. You're allowed to call her when you're not ready for anger. I'm allowed to call her for anything." "Yes," she sniffed. "Don't make this about correcting my language. I'm not. I'm reminding you that your sister loves you." David leaned forward. "I love you too." "I know, Dad." He looked relieved. Then she said, "But sometimes loving you feels like agreeing with you." His relief vanished. "That's not fair." "I know." "No, Brooke, it's not true. I'm telling you what it feels like." He pushed his chair back again. I reached across the table and put my hand on his wrist. He looked at it in surprise. "Listen," I said. He remained seated. Brooke spoke more slowly. "I remember you being there. I remember Mom being gone. I remember being angry at her and not wanting to tell her things because I thought she'd make a list. I also remember calling her when I couldn't breathe before my first big presentation because you told me to stop being dramatic." David's head jerked up. "I was trying to calm you down. You didn't." He looked at me. "Did she call you?" "Yes." "What did you say?" "I had her put both feet on the floor and name 5 things she could see. You never told me. It wasn't my story to tell. She was my daughter." "She still is. That isn't the point." Brooke laughed through her tears. "It is literally the point." The room went quiet again. Finally, David said, "I'm sorry." Brooke didn't answer. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove you loved me more." His voice was rough. He did not look at me as he said it. Brooke sniffed once. "Thank you. It was imperfect, incomplete, and not mine." I left it alone. After we ended the call, David and I sat at the dining table without speaking. The new clock made no sound. I hated it. "The old one's in the garage," he said. "You can put it back." "No." "Why not?" "Because now all I hear is that night." I looked at the carnations behind him. They were red, yellow, and white, an aggressively cheerful bunch chosen by someone who did not trust color to coordinate itself. "Why carnations?" I asked. "They last." "That's romantic." "I wasn't trying to be romantic." "I know." He looked at me across the table. "Did you know Brooke felt that way?" "No." "She called you first?" "Sometimes." "How often?" "I don't know. You know everything." "No, David. I remember details. That isn't the same thing." He picked up the level and turned it over in his hands. "I thought she came to me," he said. "She did. Not for that. For other things." "Like what?" I let the question sit between us. His mouth tightened. "You won't tell me. They have separate relationships with us. You don't get an inventory of mine because you're afraid yours is smaller. That's easy for you to say. It isn't." He studied my face. "Were you surprised she called you Mom? At the apartment?" "Yes." "No." "She calls me Mom sometimes." He looked wounded again. "She calls me Rachel sometimes, too," I said. "I don't grade it." "I'm not grading. You've been keeping score for decades, and you haven't." I wanted to say no. Then I remembered every date, every package, every repair, every phone call I had almost recited to Brooke in the hotel. The ledger existed. I had simply believed mine was more honest because I kept it silently. "Yes," I said, "I have." David put the level down. "What happens if we stop?" he asked. "I don't know." Another honest answer. "I'm trying them out." He almost smiled. I put on my coat and lifted the banker's box. "I can carry that," he said. "I know." He stepped out of my way. At the front door, I looked back. He was standing under the silent clock, one hand resting on the chair where I had sat. "Nina tried to call because she was offered a position in Denver," I said. His head lifted. "She wanted to ask what you thought." "Does she want it?" "That's for her to tell you." He nodded. "Will she call again?" he asked. "I don't know." He looked toward his phone on the kitchen counter. "Should I call her?" I almost answered automatically. Then I said, "What do you want to do?" He stared at me for a second, annoyed. "I want to call her." "Then call her." I left before he did. He did not call me afterward to report how it went. Nina did. He asked about the job, she said. I was carrying the banker's box from my car to the apartment, balancing my phone against my shoulder. That's good. He apologized for missing my call. That's also good. He said Denver has altitude. It does. As if I was unaware. Did he oppose mountains? He said they make baking complicated. Your father doesn't bake. I mentioned that. I reached my door and set the box down to find my keys. What did you tell him? I asked. That I want the position, and I'm scared I'll take it because it sounds impressive, then wake up in a city where nobody knows me. What did he say? Nina was quiet for a moment. He said being known isn't the same as being trapped. I stopped with my key halfway into the lock. That's good, I said. I know. Annoying? Very. I smiled. He also told me he was proud of me, she said. I'm glad. Are you? Yes. You don't sound jealous. I'm beginning to suspect pride is not a limited resource. That feels targeted. It isn't. I carried the box inside and set it beside the blue pitcher. Nina continued. He didn't ask what you thought. That surprised me. How did that feel? Like he was talking to me. After we hung up, I opened the banker's box. David had packed the insurance folder, my winter service records, tax files, and the warranty for a washing machine we no longer owned. At the bottom was a small framed photograph from the house. It was the beach picture he had rejected from the album. A yellow sticky note covered David's face. I lifted it. In his handwriting, he had written, "This should have been in there." I left the photograph on the counter for 3 days. Every time I passed it, I lifted the sticky note, read David's sentence, and put the note back over his face. I wasn't punishing him. The adhesive had weakened, and I was testing how many times it would hold. That was the explanation I gave myself. On the 4th evening, I texted him. I found the photograph. His reply came a minute later. Good. I waited. Then another message appeared. I should have chosen it the first time. I typed 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, yes. The next morning, I put the picture on the small table beside the blue pitcher. I did not hang it. Apparently, there were levels of commitment to walls. Leon asked again whether I would extend my contract. This time, I said yes. He celebrated by handing me a clipboard and informing me that someone had inventoried 16 wall ovens as microwave trim kits. Do people here look at the things before they enter them? I asked. Looking is discouraged. It creates expectations. I liked Leon. He never turned appreciation into ceremony. When I fixed something, he said thank you and found something else that needed fixing. It was the most comfortable form of praise I had ever received. I kept leaving at 5:30. David and I began meeting on Wednesdays at a diner halfway between the house and my apartment. It was his suggestion. Neutral ground, he said during our first meal. The booths have ducks painted on them. Neutral ducks. They're wearing sailor hats. Patriotic neutral ducks. He ordered meatloaf. I ordered soup. We sat across from each other with a chrome napkin dispenser between us and tried to discuss 30 years without frightening the waitress. The first week, we talked mostly about practical things, the replacement bank card, insurance, whether he should cancel my side of the wine club membership. Do I still get half the wine? I asked. You don't even like the red blend. I like Justice. He nodded. Half the bad wine is yours. The second week, he told me he had replaced the furnace filter. Correct size? Yes. Correct direction? It has arrows. It always had arrows. The old arrows were confusing. Were they pointing sideways? He glared at me over his coffee. I laughed. Then his expression softened in a way that made the space between us feel smaller. Come home, he said. The request arrived without preparation. No argument, no lead-in, no list of reasons. Just 2 words placed beside the sugar packets. I looked down at my soup. I can't. You don't know that. I do tonight. I've apologized. You've begun apologizing. What else am I supposed to say? That's the problem. You keep treating the right sentence like a combination that opens the door. I'm trying to understand what you need. I needed you not to believe I was a visitor in my own family. I don't believe that. You did. I was angry. You selected those photographs over months." He sat back. "So nothing I say now counts because of something I believed then. It counts. It just doesn't erase it. I'm not asking for erasure." I looked at him. He gave a frustrated laugh. "Fine, I hear it. You want the old marriage back. I want my wife back. Your wife handled everything you didn't want to notice. That isn't all you were. Then tell me what else you miss." He opened his mouth and stopped. I waited. "The way you stand in the kitchen eating the first bite before you put food on the table. That's quality control. The way you complain about my television volume and then ask what happened because you've been listening from the other room. You narrate badly. You rub your feet together when you're falling asleep." I stared at him. "You make this little cricket sound," he said. "I do not." "You do? Why have you never told me?" I liked it. The diner seemed suddenly too public. He continued, "I miss you reading menus from the dessert section backward. I miss you swearing at jars. I miss how you say interesting when you mean somebody has made an avoidable mistake. Interesting. That." I looked away. "Do you miss me?" he asked. "Yes." His face changed. I held up a hand. "That isn't an answer to the bigger question. It could be. No. Missing someone tells you the bond is real. It doesn't tell you what to do with it." "Where did you get that?" "Denise." "Denise has been talking to you?" "She brought ziti. She brought me nothing. You received marital advice and 4 heads of lettuce. I would have preferred ziti." We smiled at each other. Then David said, "You haven't taken off your ring." I looked at my left hand. "Neither have you. Mine means I'm waiting. Mine means I haven't decided." The difference hurt him. I saw it. He folded his napkin into a smaller square. "How long do you get to decide?" "As long as I need." "And what am I supposed to do? Stop asking me to plan your side of this." He pushed the napkin away. We did not order dessert. By the 3rd Wednesday, he had stopped asking me to come home. That frightened me more than the asking had. We talked about Nina instead. She accepted the position in Denver after negotiating a later start date and enough relocation help to satisfy even me. David had asked her good questions. He did not tell her what I thought. He also did not tell her she was abandoning anyone. She said she's taking her coffee table, he told me. Why wouldn't she? It weighs more than she does. She paid too much for it. She says it's mid-century. It was made 4 years ago. She says the style is mid-century. I have boots older than that table. David smiled. I told her she should leave it. She won't. I know. He sounded proud of her stubbornness. Brooke had begun calling both of us separately. When she talked to me, she was careful at first, as if every subject might trigger a speech about the album. I refused to give one. She told me about a presentation at work, a leak under her kitchen sink, and an argument with Nina over whether Denver required an emergency car kit. She called me Mom twice and Rachel once. I did not react to any of them. One Saturday, she arrived at the apartment with the album under her arm. I'm not bringing pasta, she said. Then you can't come in. She held up a bag from a sandwich shop. Acceptable. We ate at the small table. I had bought a second chair for the balcony, though the two barely fit side by side. Brooke noticed them through the glass. Dad thinks one chair meant you were done with him. Your father has strong views on furniture. Why did you buy another? It was on sale. $2? $20. So $2 worth was emotional. Maybe. After lunch, she opened the album. Small removable notes protruded from nearly every page. Blue, pink, yellow, green. What did you do? I asked. I asked questions. She turned to the backyard grill picture. A blue note beside it read, Who bought the grill? A pink one said, Who took this photo? Beneath the picture from Nina's graduation dinner, a green note asked, Who made the reservation and got Dad to wear a tie? You made it look like a very cheerful audit, I said. I thought you'd appreciate the organization. I do. That worries me. I'm not trying to prove Dad lied about everything. Good. He didn't. Some pages are exactly how I remember them. I believe you. But some aren't. She turned to the welcome home spread. My sliver of sleeve remained at the edge. Beneath David's caption, Brooke had added a yellow note. What happened before and after this photograph? My throat tightened. I don't know if I want to do this, I said. I'm not asking you to write answers. What are you asking? I want us to tell the stories. Together? All four of us. That sounds like a trial. It isn't. Your father may feel differently, he agreed. That surprised me. To what exactly? Dinner at the house. We go through whichever pages people want to talk about. I don't want to litigate 30 years over tenderloin. He's making chicken. Then I'm reassured. She closed the book. Mom, I don't want the album fixed so everybody can pretend the mistake never happened. Good. I also don't want Dad to spend the rest of his life as the villain because he made it. Neither do I. He thinks you do. I know. He doesn't think that as much now. I leaned back. What changed? Brooke picked at the edge of a blue note. He called me after you met at the diner last week. He said he needed to tell me something without explaining it. That sounds difficult for him. It took 3 tries. What did he say? She looked at me. He said, Rachel raised you too. I did not speak. He didn't say it like a concession, Brooke continued. He said he knew it, and he didn't understand why knowing it had started to feel like losing. I looked down at my hands. Did you tell him he was right? No. Why not? Because it wasn't about making you right. The answer was more mature than I expected, which was unfair to Brooke. We often freeze people at the age when they were hardest to understand. When is dinner? I asked. Next Sunday. Nina will be in town? She's coming to sort what she wants to take to Denver. I looked at the album. Okay. Brooke let out a breath. Okay means yes? It means I'll come to dinner. Dad said you'd make that distinction. Your father knows me. I think he's starting to. She left the album with me. For the next week, I walked past it on the table. I read the colored questions but wrote no answers. At work, Leon offered me a permanent position. I told him I wasn't ready to decide. Do you need more money? He asked. That's refreshingly direct. I can offer some. I need to know if I want a permanent job. He nodded. That sounds worse. It is. At 5:30, I went home to the apartment and put the beach photograph on the wall. I used a level. On Sunday, I drove to the house with the album on the passenger seat. Nina's rental car was in the driveway. Brooke's car sat at the curb. Through the front window, I could see all 3 of them moving around the dining room. I waited until 6 exactly before going inside. The table was set for 4. David had put the old clock back on the wall. Its ticking filled the room. The anniversary album rested at my place. Nina hugged me first. Brooke took my coat. David stood beside my chair wearing the blue sweater from our anniversary. He pulled the chair out for me. Before we eat, he said, There's something I need to say. He looked at Nina and Brooke, then at me. And I'm not going to ask any of you to save me from it. David rested both hands on the back of the chair. I made the album because I wanted to be seen, he said. That part is true. But I decided the only way to make myself visible was to make Rachel smaller. No one moved. The old clock ticked behind him. He looked at Brooke. I asked you to help me prove I was the parent who stayed. I put you in a position where thanking me meant excluding her. I'm sorry. Brooke's arms were folded tightly across her chest. You knew what you were doing? She asked. Not all of it. That's convenient. Yes. She blinked. David continued. I knew I was choosing photographs without her. I knew some captions were angry. I told myself it was balance because her service had already received so much attention. I did not stop to ask why an anniversary gift needed balance. Nina leaned against the sideboard. Did you want us to agree with it? Yes. The answer landed harder than a denial would have. He looked at her. I wanted you both to say I was the one who raised you. When you didn't say it quickly enough, I started asking questions designed to get the answer. The appointments, Nina said. Yes. The calls. Yes. You asked me whether a good father would have let Mom keep serving when everybody was exhausted. I turned toward him. I had not known that. David nodded once. I did. That wasn't your decision to let her. I know. Do you? I'm beginning to. Nina's mouth tightened, but she let him continue. He finally looked at me. You raised them, he said. The sentence was simple. No qualifier. No comparison. My throat closed anyway. You raised them differently because you had to, he continued. You also missed things. You came home and took over. Sometimes you made me feel like everything I had done was temporary until the competent person returned. I nodded. But I used that hurt to cancel everything you did. I made being needed into being right. Then I turned our anniversary into a story where I had a family and you had a career. The room blurred for a moment. I focused on the album at my place. David's voice roughened. You had both. So did I. We paid for both. I'm sorry I said you raised no one. I'm sorry I believed that acknowledging you meant surrendering something that belonged to me. He drew a breath. I'm not asking you to come home because I said this. I looked up. I want you to, he said. I'm not going to pretend I don't, but I'm not making that the price of the apology. The chicken timer went off in the kitchen. No one moved. It continued beeping. Brooke wiped under one eye. Is somebody going to get that? David closed his eyes. I had one job. You had several, Nina said. You set a table. I also made potatoes. Are they safe? They're potatoes. That isn't an answer. The timer kept beeping. I went into the kitchen and opened the oven. Smoke did not pour out, which seemed encouraging. The chicken was dark along the edges, but recognizable. David appeared beside me with oven mitts. I've got it, he said. So do I. We both had one hand on the roasting pan. Brooke called from the dining room. This feels symbolic, and I hate it. I released the pan. David set it on the stovetop. It's a little overdone. I pressed one finger against the breast. It's wearing body armor. You liked crispy skin. Skin, yes. Structural reinforcement, no. He laughed once, and then his face crumpled. It happened so quickly, I barely understood it. 1 second, he was holding the oven mitts. The next, he had both hands braced on the counter and his head down. David did not cry elegantly. His shoulders jerked, and he made a small, furious sound as though grief were another appliance malfunctioning in front of witnesses. I stood beside him without touching him. Nina and Brooke remained in the dining room. Neither came to rescue him. After a moment, he wiped his face with one oven mitt, realized what he had done, and stared at it. That's clean, I said. It has chicken on it. Other side. He turned it over, checked, and wiped his face again. We carried dinner to the table. The chicken required more sauce than I had expected. David had made green beans with almonds, except he forgot to toast the almonds, so they sat pale and anxious among the beans. The vegetables look surprised, Brooke said. They're natural, David replied. They're underprepared. Not everybody has to arrive with a plan. Nina pointed her fork at him. Too soon. He nodded. Fair. For several minutes, we ate and discussed nothing more dangerous than Nina's move. David had found a company that would ship her mid-century coffee table. It isn't mid-century, I said. Please don't start, Nina replied. It's spiritually mid-century, Brooke said. That is not a thing. It is in Denver. The conversation felt almost normal, but normal had become suspect. I kept waiting for someone to use laughter as a bridge back to the old arrangement. No one did. When the plates were mostly empty, Brooke reached for the album. We don't have to do every page, she said. Good, David replied. There are 96. You counted? I paid for it. You didn't, Brooke said. I did. He looked at me. I stand corrected. Brooke opened to the welcome home spread. The crop looked even stranger with all 4 of us sitting around it. My missing body seemed less like absence than a person standing just outside a door. What happened before this picture? Brooke asked. I looked at David. He said, "We had argued the night before." Nina frowned. "About what?" "The garbage disposal," I said. David gave me a tired look. "It was not about the garbage disposal. That was the subject. The subject was you changing your arrival time 4 times. I didn't control the flight. I know that now. You knew it then. I understood it then. That isn't the same." Brooke touched the edge of the page. "What happened after?" "I got tangled in the banner," I said. Nina smiled. "I remember that." "You laughed so hard you snorted," David told her. "I do not snort." "You absolutely do," Brooke said. David looked at the photograph. Rachel was trying to step under it and the tape came loose. One end stuck to her shoulder. "You said, 'The army has defeated heavier fabric,'" I recalled. "That sounds like me. It wasn't helpful. It was funny. Eventually." Brooke peeled the yellow note from beneath the caption and placed it on the table. "What should this say?" she asked. No one answered immediately. Finally, David said, "Nothing yet." Brooke nodded and turned the page. We stopped at a photograph from Nina's graduate school commencement. David stood beside her in a dark suit, both of them squinting into the sun. I had been overseas. Nina tapped the picture. "This one hurt. I met her eyes." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." I sat back. She continued. "I told everyone it was fine. Dad said we'd stream it for you, but the connection didn't work. I kept checking his phone while they were calling names." David looked down. "I saw the recording," I said. 3 days later." "Yes." "You sent flowers." "Yes." "I didn't want flowers." "What did you want?" "You." There was no answer that would improve that truth. "I'm sorry," I said. Nina nodded, eyes wet. "I know you couldn't just leave. I still missed it." "Yes." David reached toward her hand, then stopped before touching it. Nina closed the distance herself. "This page can stay," she said. Brooke looked surprised. "With the caption?" It read, "Dad never let an empty chair ruin a full day." Nina studied it. "No," she said. "That part's ridiculous. The chair did ruin some of the day." "I was trying to keep things positive," David replied. "You complained about the live stream for 6 hours. It was a bad system. You called the venue twice. They needed feedback." I laughed. "That sounds like him." David looked at me. "You would have called 3 times, only if they failed to document the first 2. Brooke pulled off another note. We moved through the album without fixing it. That became the rule. We told what we remembered and left the pages open to contradiction. David had planned one birthday dinner. I had chosen the restaurant and ordered the cake. He had repaired a dress. I had talked him through the zipper replacement from a hotel room. I had arranged a holiday package. He had spent the day making sure no one stared at the door waiting for it. Some memories belonged mostly to him. Some belonged mostly to me. Most had been built from pieces passed back and forth until no one could honestly say where one person's care ended. Brooke stopped at a photograph of the red apron. "Mom mailed this," she said. David nodded. "I ruined 3 shirts before she did." 4, I corrected. One was already ruined. It had mustard on the collar. "That washes out. You wore it to a client meeting." Nina looked between us. "How did you stay married 30 years? "Low standards," David said. "Separate closets," I replied. We smiled, but no one pretended the joke answered her. Near the end, Brooke closed the album. "I don't need either of you to tell me who raised me," she said. David looked at her carefully. "All right." "You did," she continued. "Both of you, not equally every day, not the same way, but both." He nodded. She looked at me. "I'm still angry about some things. You should be." "I'm angry at you too, Dad." "I know, and I'm not changing what I call anybody because of this." "You don't have to," I said. Nina leaned back in her chair. "My relationship with Mom doesn't depend on whether you stay married." David flinched. She saw it. "I'm not saying I want you divorced. I know. I'm saying you don't get to define who she is to me." "I know." he said again. This time, there was no resentment in it. After dessert, Nina and Brooke carried plates into the kitchen while David packed leftover chicken into containers. No one asked me to direct cleanup. I dried dishes because I wanted to, not because a wet plate had appeared and claimed me. Brooke took the album to the living room but left it closed on the coffee table. At 9, the daughters left together. Nina was staying at Brooke's rather than the hotel so they could drive to Nina's apartment early and begin sorting for Denver. Brooke hugged David first, then she hugged me. "Good night, Mom," she said. She did not look at anyone afterward to see whether they had noticed. Nina hugged us both and whispered to me, "The chicken was terrible." "I know." "Thank you for not lying." When the front door closed, the house became quiet except for the old clock. David and I stood in the dining room beside the cleared table. "Well," he said. "Well?" "I meant what I said. I know. Does that matter?" "Yes." He looked toward the living room where the album waited. "Does it change anything?" "Yes." Hope crossed his face before he could stop it. I loved him enough to hate what I had to do with that hope. "It doesn't change things the way you want," I said. His shoulders lowered. "You've decided," he said. I looked at the blue sweater I had bought him, the silent carnations, the chair he had pulled out for me. "Yes," I said. I had. "I'm not coming home," I said. David lowered himself into the chair he had pulled out for me earlier. "Ever? I don't think I can be your wife anymore." He looked down at his hands. His wedding ring caught the light from the chandelier, a dull gold line against his skin. "You said what happened tonight mattered." "It did. But it didn't matter enough." "That isn't how this works." "Then how does it work, Rachel?" "You tell me I need to understand. I finally understand and you leave anyway. I had already left. You rented an apartment. That isn't the same as ending a marriage." "No, it gave me enough room to see the marriage." He pushed back from the table and walked to the window. Nina's rental car was gone. Brooke's taillights had disappeared down the street. There was no one left to perform composure for. "What did you see?" he asked. "That I spent years proving I belonged here by making myself indispensable. I thought, if I remembered enough and handled enough, no one could mistake distance for not loving them, and I did. Yes, I was wrong. Yes." He turned. "So punish me." "I'm not." "You think losing you isn't punishment?" "It may feel like punishment. That doesn't make it one." "What would make it one? If I were doing it to hurt you, and you're not?" The question was raw enough that I had to look away. "I know it hurts," I said. "It hurts me too. Then don't do it." I had imagined this moment several times in the apartment. In every version, I spoke clearly, and David eventually understood. I should have known better. Understanding did not make pain cooperative. "I love you," I said. He laughed once bitterly. "That's useful. It's true. You love me, I love you, I apologized. And somehow the answer is still that you live beside a river with furniture you hate. I don't hate the second balcony chair. Progress." Despite everything, I smiled. David saw it and shook his head. "How can you joke? How can you? I'm not the one leaving." "No, you're the one who kept treating my leaving like the only important thing about me." He sat again. The old clock ticked above us. It sounded louder than it had before. "I could change," he said. "I hope you do. But not for you. Not to get me back." His face hardened. "What's the difference? If you change to get me back, every decent thing becomes a payment. Then if I don't return, you'll decide the work was wasted." "Maybe it was." "No. You apologized to Brooke because she deserved it. You called Nina because she needed her father. You told the truth tonight because the truth mattered. And none of that matters to you? It matters enough that I can leave without hating you." He looked as if I had offered him an empty box and called it generous. "I don't want your forgiveness," he said. "What do you want?" "You." I closed my eyes. "I know. Is there somebody else?" "No." "The job?" "No." "The apartment?" "No." "Then what are you choosing over me?" "Me." He stared at me. It sounded selfish when spoken aloud. Maybe it was. I had spent most of my adult life treating selfishness as a failure of logistics, proof that someone had not considered the whole unit. But a marriage was not a unit if one person had to disappear to preserve it. I don't know who I am when nobody needs me urgently, I said. I don't know if I like being retired. I don't know whether I want that job permanently. I don't know what to put on my walls. But I need to find those things without turning them into another assignment I complete so I can come back here. We could find out together. We had 8 months. You never told me you were unhappy. I didn't know I was allowed to be. We kept calling retirement our turn, but it became my turn to make up for every year I was gone. I never asked you to do that. No, you expected it. He started to object, then stopped. I expected you to be here, he said. I was here. You know what I mean. Yes, I finally do. David looked toward the living room. The album was visible on the coffee table, its cream cover catching the light. Take it, he said. It belongs to all of us. It shouldn't stay here. Why? Because I'll open it and start defending myself again. The honesty almost undid me. I walked into the living room and picked it up. The colored notes shifted between the pages. When I returned, David was standing by the front door with my coat. He held it open, and I put my arms into the sleeves. His hands rested briefly on my shoulders. Are we getting divorced? He asked. Eventually, yes. He nodded as if I had confirmed an appointment. Do the girls know? No. Do you want to tell them? Together? Fine. He opened the door, then closed it again. Can I hug you? I set the album on the hall table. For 30 years, I had known the shape of David's body in every condition. Asleep, laughing, sick, angry, reaching past me for something in a cabinet. When he put his arms around me, my body recognized home before my mind could correct it. I held him. His face pressed into my hair. My cheek rested against the blue sweater I had bought for our anniversary. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to explain without turning goodbye into negotiation. When we separated, he touched my wedding ring. When? He asked. I don't know. Another honest answer. Yes. I picked up the album and walked out. He stood in the doorway while I reached the car. I expected him to ask me to stay one more time. He didn't. The separation became permanent through ordinary decisions. We divided household things without using them as weapons. David kept the blue and white picture that had belonged to his mother. I kept the crooked blue one from the discount store. He offered me the good knives because I had chosen them. I took 2 and left him the chef's knife because he cooked more than either of us had admitted. He learned Denise's salad preferences. The first time she invited him to dinner, after we told Art and her about the divorce, he brought romaine, dressing, and toasted almonds in separate containers. Denise sent me a photograph with the caption, "He can be taught." I replied, "Don't overstate the evidence." David mailed his own birthday cards. Some arrived late. One cousin received a sympathy card after minor surgery because David bought the wrong package. No one died. He stopped calling me to ask what to tell Nina or Brooke. At first, that meant he said the wrong thing more often. Nina complained that he had asked whether Denver was still experimental after she had already signed a lease. "What did you say?" I asked. That marriage was experimental and he got 30 years out of it. That was unnecessarily sharp. It was accurate. Those are different categories. You sound like Dad. Interesting. She groaned. A week later, David called her and apologized without checking the wording with me. When Nina moved, we both helped. David drove behind the moving truck with her allegedly mid-century coffee table strapped inside his SUV because she did not trust strangers with it. I organized the kitchen boxes, then stopped myself from reorganizing the kitchen after she unpacked them. "You put the glasses beside the stove," I said. "I know, that cabinet gets warm." "I know." I stared at it. Nina put both hands on my shoulders and turned me toward the door. "Go look at a mountain. I've seen mountains. This one wants to meet you." David watched from the living room, smiling. "You did that for years." Nina asked him. "Your mother once labeled my sock drawer. You mixed dress socks and athletic socks. They had separate regions. They shared a border." Nina pushed us both outside. We stood together on the walkway while she closed the door behind us. For a moment, David and I looked like what we had always looked like, a married couple dismissed by an exasperated daughter. Then he walked toward his hotel, and I walked toward mine. Brooke came to the apartment on Sundays when she could. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she brought laundry and claimed the machines in her building were damaging her clothes. "You're an hour from home," I told her the first time. "Your machines are emotionally safer. You're paying for the electricity." She called me Mom more often after the dinner, though never ceremonially. It slipped into ordinary sentences. "Mom, do you think this pan is ruined?" "Mom, Nina says Denver has changed her, but all she's done is buy hiking boots." "Mom, Dad wants to know if you took the red cooler." I had taken the red cooler. She still called me Rachel when she was irritated. "Rachel, you cannot reorganize my trunk while I'm inside." I didn't comment on the difference. Leon offered me the permanent position again. I negotiated 4 days a week and accepted. On Fridays, I learned how to have time that was not waiting to be filled. At first, I cleaned the apartment. Then I ran out of things to clean. I bought a plant and nearly killed it by watering on a schedule instead of checking the soil. Brooke found me staring at the yellow leaves. "It's not a supply chain," she said. "Everything is a supply chain if you think broadly. It needs less water. That seems negligent." She took the watering can away. I put photographs on the walls. The beach picture went near the balcony door. I added one of Nina and Brooke at my retirement dinner, leaning together beneath a string of lights. Another showed David and me on our 10th anniversary, both younger than Nina was now. I did not remove him from my life to prove I had survived it. The divorce itself was quiet. We signed what needed signing, argued once about the wine club, and discovered neither of us wanted the red blend. David kept the house. I kept the apartment after persuading the leasing manager to replace the suspicious couch. On what would have been our 31st anniversary, I woke before 6 and reached across the bed. The other side was cool. For a moment, grief was so physical, I thought something in the room had fallen on me. My phone showed one message from David. I remember. "I'm sorry. I hope today is gentle." I wrote, "I remember too." Then I made coffee and warmed my own mug. Brooke arrived shortly before noon carrying the album. Nina was with her, home from Denver for a long weekend wearing hiking boots clean enough to suggest she had never introduced them to a trail. "You said these were for hiking," I told her. "They're aspirational. That means expensive. That means Denver." Brooke set the album on the table. "I think we should finish it," she said. "We agreed not to fix it. Finish isn't fix." Nina opened the refrigerator. "Do you have food?" "There's pasta." "How much?" "Enough." She looked at Brooke. She finally learned. We ate at my table, the three of us fitting badly around dishes and the album. After lunch, Brooke opened to the Welcome Home spread. The caption remained beneath the cropped photograph. "The years Dad became both parents." "I hate it," she said. "It's part of what happened. The caption isn't what happened. No, but the album was." Brooke took a strip of cream archival paper from an envelope. It matched the page closely but not perfectly. "We can cover it," she said, "not erase it. If anybody lifts the strip, it'll still be underneath." I ran my finger along David's caption. Then I peeled the backing from the new paper and placed it over the words. Nina handed me a pen. I wrote slowly. "Distance cost all of us something. It did not make any of us no one." Brooke read it twice. "Keep going," she said. The final page was blank. Nina propped my phone against the blue picture and set the timer. I stood automatically to check the angle. "Sit down," she said. "The frame is too high. It's fine. The light is behind us." "Mom." I sat. Brooke squeezed in on my left. Nina hurried around the table and dropped into the chair on my right. The phone began counting down. At 3, I noticed the yellow dish towel hanging crooked from the oven. At 2, I started to rise. Both women grabbed my arms. At 1, we were laughing. The shutter clicked while I was still in the frame.